Chapter 1734. The moment Tang 13 opened his ghost eye, everyone stared into his eyes, dumbfounded. Those eyes were far too scary. Like a bottomless abyss, they constantly emitted dark energy. The entire space was filled with coldness. Nie Tian was a little nervous, afraid that something terrifying would happen. But in the next second, Tang 13's eyes slowly returned to normal. Finally, they returned to normal and looked no different from a normal person. Everyone was shocked and stared at Tang 13 in disbelief. At this moment, Tang 13 stood up and looked at everyone with confusion. She asked, "Are you guys okay? Why are you all looking at me like that?" Everyone froze again and couldn't react for a long time. 13, are you okay? After a while, Tang Yuyu was the first to react. He took a step forward, looked at Tang 13 with a face full of joy, and shouted in surprise. "I'm okay." Tang 13 grinned. Her face was calm as if she didn't know she had been asleep for 5 to 6 days. Nie Tian stood where he was, thinking that Tang 13 had lost her memory. But Tang 13's condition was very good. It was obvious that she didn't lose her memory. Nie Tian checked Tang 13's breathing and didn't find anything strange. He relaxed a little. Gao Yuhan also checked Tang 13's condition and didn't find anything strange. "I need to leave now." Seeing that Tang 13 had woken up and was fine, Gao Yuhan didn't stay any longer. She bid farewell and left. Nie Tian looked at the gradually disappearing figure, and his eyes couldn't help but flicker. Gao Yuhan was a mysterious person. She had been helping Nie Tian intentionally or unintentionally. If she was only helping Rui Qianyu, Nie Tian could understand. After all, Rui Qianyu was the same as her. They both had colored eyes. However, Gao Yuhan had helped Nie Tian many times. This time, she saved Tang 13. This was very strange. It was obvious that Gao Yuhan had something she wanted Nie Tian to do, but she didn't say it out loud. Also, Gao Yuhan reminded Rui Qianyu not to use her colored eyes. However, when she had saved Duan Tianhen, she had used her rainbow pupils. A few days ago when they were saving Tang 13, Gao Yuhan and Rui Qianyu also used the rainbow pupils. Also, Gao Yuhan had said that Duan Tianhen had the 5th seal and couldn't die. What did that mean? Vaguely, Nie Tian felt that Gao Yuhan was plotting something. His intuition told him that all of this might be related to the forbidden land of the 9 infants. Gao Yuhan previously said that she knew nothing about the forbidden ground of the 9-headed infants, but she mentioned the evil energy of the 9-headed infant and the 9-headed infant demon cocoon. Nie Tian felt that Gao Yuhan was like a mystery that he could not see clearly. However, he did not think too much about it. The most important thing now was to survive in the forbidden land of 9 infants. As for the future, he would think about it in the future. Next, Nie Tian decided to rest in the cave for a few days. At the very least, he wanted to wait until Tang 13's condition stabilized. After nightfall, Rui Qianyu and Tang Yuyu were already asleep. Nie Tian stood in the valley with Tang 13 beside him. All of a sudden, Tang 13 said, "Nie Tian, I have something to tell you." Nie Tian turned to look at Tang 13. The latter's expression was serious, and she seemed very worried. "Let's go out and talk." Tang 13 looked back at the valley and said carefully, "Okay." Nie Tian nodded slightly and walked out of the valley with Tang 13. The two of them stopped at a place not far from the valley. Nie Tian asked, "Tang 13, what happened?" Tang 13's expression was not right. She seemed very nervous. "Nie Tian, I've sensed something." Tang 13 nodded and said, "When the eye of the ghost eye and the evil energy of the 9-headed infant merged, some images appeared in my head." "What images?" Nie Tian was shocked and asked. "Images of the demon cocoon of the 9-headed infant." Tang 13's eyes were serious. "The demon cocoon of the 9-headed infant is about to awaken." "Awaken?" Nie Tian froze and asked, "What does that mean?" He didn't even know what the demon cocoon of the 9-headed infant was. Of course, He couldn't understand what it meant. I don't know either. Tang 13 shook her head and said, I just have a feeling that something scary is about to happen. Nie Tian frowned. It seemed like something had happened to Tang 13. He just didn't reveal it right away. He was probably afraid that Tang Yuyu would worry. Nie Tian, do you think the evil energy of the nine-headed infant is scary? Tang 13's eyes flickered and she suddenly asked. Scary? Nie Tian nodded heavily. He had felt the evil energy of the nine-headed infant before. It was dark and suffocating. How strong do you think my eye of the ghost eye is now? Tang 13's lips twitched and she asked in a low voice. What do you mean? Nie Tian stared at Tang 13 and froze. Tang 13's silhouette flashed and she retreated hundreds of meters away from Nie Tian. She said, Make your move. I will let you feel how strong the eye of the ghost eye is now. Nie Tian's eyes froze and he smiled. He was curious as well. What kind of changes did the mutated eye of the ghost eye undergo? Without hesitation, Nie Tian activated the 3 demonic sword pulses inside his body. At the same time, 32 rays of demonic and divine energy were released. Around him, a terrifying amount of sword energy surged. Yes. Tang 13 stared at Nie Tian and nodded heavily. Without hesitation, Nie Tian slashed out with his sword. The sword's shadow howled and headed towards Tang 13. Tang 13 stood where she was, her eyes trembled slightly. After which, a strange gust of energy was released from her eyes, forming a black claw in the air. It grabbed onto the sword's shadow, and a terrifying amount of energy exploded. The sword's shadow was instantly destroyed, and the sword will dissipated into the air. Such terrifying power! Nie Tian's eyes couldn't help but tremble at the sight before him, and he exclaimed in shock. Of course, the attack just now wasn't his strongest attack. However, he used the power of the demonic and divine in addition to the 3 demonic sword pulses. This wasn't something normal warriors could handle. But Tang 13 merely blinked her eyes and broke through Nie Tian's attack. This was too terrifying. Tang 13's eye of the ghost eye was obviously only used a little and she didn't use her full strength. If she did, Nie Tian would have been severely injured. In the blink of an eye, Nie Tian sensed that Tang 13's eye power contained an extremely evil power, which strengthened his own eye power by several times. Right now, if Tang 13 used the eye of the ghost eye to fight against Nie Tian, it would be hard to say who would win. The eye of the ghost eye is combined with the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. It sure is scary. Nie Tian became cold and smiled. Tang 13 walked over, her face dark. Nie Tian, the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet that I combined with came from the demon cocoon of the 9-headed snakelet's forbidden ground. But compared to the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet in the cocoon, this energy is like a drop in the ocean. Nie Tian's eyes widened and his expression froze for a few seconds. After he regained his composure, he stuttered. You mean to say that the demon cocoon of the 9-headed snakelet contains unimaginable power? Chapter 1735. In the 9 Infants mountain range, in a dense forest, Nie Tian stared at Tang 13, speechless for a long time. What Tang 13 was worried about was the awakening of the demon cocoon. Even though he did not know what the demon cocoon was, from the mutated ghost eye, he could tell that the power contained within the demon cocoon was absolutely terrifying. Nie Tian, I can sense that the 9-headed fierce demon cocoon lives by devouring the blood chi of martial artists. If the demon cocoon awakens, it will definitely kill all the warriors. Tang 13 looked at Nie Tian and said in a low voice, This. Nie Tian took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. What was the demon cocoon? It was so terrifying. What was the relationship between the 9 Infants' heaven and the demon cocoon? Everything was like a riddle in Nie Tian's heart. Nie Tian, we have to stop the demon cocoon from awakening. Tang 13 looked at Nie Tian and said in a heavy tone. He did not know what the demon cocoon was, but he had a strong desire to stop the demon cocoon from awakening. Nie Tian pondered. After a while, he let out a long breath and said, "Looks like if we want to find out everything, we have to enter the forbidden ground of the 9 infants." Originally, Nie Tian thought that Tang 13 was not in danger and that they did not need to enter the forbidden ground of the 9 infants. But now, it seemed like they still had to enter the forbidden ground of the 9 infants to find out. Nie Tian and Tang 13 did not waste any more time and immediately returned to the valley. They decided that tomorrow morning, they would start thinking of ways to enter the forbidden ground of the 9 infants. The next morning, Nie Tian and Tang 13 walked out of the cave. The two did not show anything, their faces calm as usual. Then, Nie Tian and the others left the valley. Walking in the forest, the 4 of them were very cautious. The forbidden ground of the 9 infants had lasted for almost half a month. They did not know how many of the 180 participants were still alive. Nie Tian and the others slowly approached the forbidden ground of the 9 infants and stopped about 10,000 meters away. If he were to get any closer, he might attract the attention of the guards. Nie Tian, what do we do now? Tang 13 looked at Nie Tian and asked. They had seen the guards of the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants. Every single one of them was a paramount god martial artist. What was more frightening was that these guards could ignore the restrictions of the martial way. Their vital meridians and godheads were not suppressed at all. With Nie Tian and Tang 13's strength, trying to barge into the forbidden ground of the 9-headed infant was no different from seeking death. Nie Tian furrowed his brows. He had no other choice. Trying to use a low-level trick like luring the tiger away from the mountain to lure away the guards of the forbidden area was simply impossible. Moreover, Nie Tian did not know how many guards were guarding the forbidden land of 9 infants. After thinking for a long time, Nie Tian really couldn't think of a good way. His forehead was covered in sweat. Nie Tian, if you want to enter the 9 infants' forbidden ground, there's only one way. Just then, the fat cat's voice suddenly rang out. Nie Tian went blank for a moment before asking, "What is it?" "Find that elder for help." The corner of the fat cat's mouth twitched and she said, "Find her." Nie Tian was stunned. Gao Yuhan's face appeared in his mind. His eyes couldn't help but flicker. Fat Cat was right. It was impossible for Nie Tian and the others to enter the forbidden land of 9 infants by themselves. The only way was to ask Gao Yuhan for help. However, Nie Tian wasn't sure if Gao Yuhan would help. That elder hides herself very well. I'm afraid she wants to know the secrets of the forbidden land of 9 infants more than you do. The fat cat laughed and said, "As long as you find her, I believe she will help." Nie Tian's face darkened. He really didn't know where the fat cat got her confidence from. However, Nie Tian and the others really had no other choice but to ask Gao Yuhan for help. However, the problem now was that Nie Tian didn't know where Gao Yuhan was. Previously, Gao Yuhan always appeared on her own. It wasn't easy for Nie Tian to find her. That elder seems to be very interested in the 5th seal. Maybe if we find the 5th seal, we will be able to find her. The fat cat laughed and reminded Nie Tian. Duan Tianhen. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed and the corner of his mouth twitched. Gao Yuhan was indeed very interested in Duan Tianhen's 5th seal. Maybe she was following Duan Tianhen. However, Duan Tianhen wouldn't be easy to find. The 9 infants' mountain range was so big. It was indeed not easy to find one person. Nie Tian thought and said in his heart, Duan Tianhen was with absolute ice. I can find absolute ice first. However, I don't have the ice demon silk. It won't be easy to find absolute ice. After thinking for a while, Nie Tian made a decision and sent a telepathic message to Tang 13. Tang 13, let's leave this place first and find Lan Yiru. Nie Tian had a deep hatred for Lan Yiru and absolute ice. The latter would know how to deal with absolute ice. Alright. Tang 13 nodded slightly. There was no point in waiting here. The four of them didn't stay any longer. They left immediately and sprinted in the direction where Lan Yiru had set up the valley's killing array. After a while, Nye Tian and the others arrived at a wide area. In front of them was a dense forest. The valley's killing array was in the dense forest. At this moment, Nye Tian's expression suddenly changed and his eyes darkened. He heard the sounds of fighting in the distance. "Let's go take a look." Nye Tian's figure flashed and he flew over. Tang 13 and the others followed closely. At the same time, in a dense forest tens of thousands of meters away, a fierce battle was going on. In midair, two figures were facing each other. It was Absolute Ice and Lan Yiru. Below them there were also two figures. One was Duan Tianhen, the other was Gui Wuchan. Both of them were watching the battle and had no intention of joining in. "Lan Yiru, do you think you can kill me with your strength?" Absolute Ice smiled cold. His eyes flickered with disdain. He knew that Lan Yiru was a divine array master and her combat ability was not strong. "Absolute Ice, you killed my sister. I will kill you." Lan Yiru stood in the air, her blue robe fluttering in the wind. She was shrouded in a large array, and the runes of the array circulated around her body. "Humph!" Absolute Ice sneered. With a look of disdain, he said coldly, "Your Lan family was originally a vassal family of our Bing family. It was your sister's fortune that I took a liking to her. Not only did she not know how to be grateful, she even wanted to kill me. A bitch like her deserves to die 100 times over." "Bingju, shut your mouth." Lan Yiru's beautiful eyes flickered. She shouted and moved. The runes of the array around her surged and condensed into a giant palm that slammed towards Absolute Ice. "Bitch from the Lan family, you're asking for it." Absolute Ice sneered. His face was full of disdain. The demonic ice silk around him surged and he slammed his palm down. A black claw appeared like a ghost, sharp and murderous. Kaboom! The two palms collided and the void shook violently. The palm of the array crumbled and the black claw slammed towards Lan Yiru like a mountain. Lan Yiru was too weak to fight Bingju head-on. "Miss Lan." Upon seeing this, Gui Wukan couldn't help but cry out in alarm. With a stomp of his feet, his figure soared into the sky, and his sword violently rumbled out. Chapter 1736. Duan Tianhen growled when he saw that Gui Wukan had made his move. His body moved and he struck out with his palm. Gui Wukan could feel Duan Tianhen's imposing manner. His eyes narrowed and trembled. "Stay here!" Duan Tianhen roared. Not only did he block Gui Wukan's sword, but he also forced him to retreat. On the other side, the black claw descended from the sky. It was less than 10 meters away from Lan Yiru. At such a close distance, the formation runes around Lan Yiru shattered one by one. She felt a bone-chilling cold pressing down on her, freezing her blood and meridians in an instant. "Lan Yiru, die!" Bingju's voice reverberated in the air. It was cold and ruthless. Lan Yiru's eyes flickered. There was no fear in her eyes, only endless anger. She was not afraid of death. She was unwilling to be able to avenge her sister. But in that moment of life and death, something happened. Boom! Just as the black claw was about to claim his life, the void shook strangely, and a sharp black light whistled out. It was like a sharp arrow, and it was extremely murderous. It actually shattered the black claw. The sudden scene shocked Bingju. His eyes trembled as he looked into the distance. "Miss Lan, are you all right?" Nye Tian and Tang 13 landed and asked in unison. The black light was released by Tang 13's ghost eye. It saved Lan Yiru's life. "I'm fine." Lan Yiru saw Nye Tian and Tang 13 suddenly appear. Her expression changed to one of joy. "Nye Tian, it's you again." Bingju's eyes locked onto Nye Tian as soon as he saw who had appeared in front of him. "That's right, it's me again." Nye Tian smiled faintly. There was a hint of joy in his eyes. He was lucky to meet Bingju and the others here. Most importantly, Duan Tianhen was here as well. Nia Tian. Gui Wukan's figure flashed, arriving beside Nia Tian as he shouted out in delight. Gui Wutsan, are you alright? Looking at Gui Wutsan, Nia Tian used his divine sense to check on him. Upon confirming that the latter was fine, he felt more at ease. It had to be said that Gui Wuchan was indeed very strong. He was actually able to face Duan Tianhen head-on without suffering any injuries. Furthermore, Nye Tian could faintly feel that there was a high possibility that Gui Wuchan was still concealing his strength. You've come at the right time. This time, I'll kill all of you. When Duan Tianhen saw Nye Tian arrive, there was no fear in his eyes. Instead, there was an intense killing intent. Last time, he almost died in the hands of Nye Tian, but now, he didn't fear Nye Tian at all. This was not normal. You! Nye Tianling looked at Duan Tianhen coldly. His eyes were filled with disdain as he said, "You are not qualified." Arrogant. Duan Tianhen was infuriated by Nye Tian's words. With a furious roar, the wind thunder celestial seal around him surged crazily, releasing waves of frightening power from his body. Nye Tian couldn't help but narrow his eyes when he saw this scene. He sensed another kind of aura from Duan Tianhen's body. The Ice Fiend's silk. It turned out that Duan Tianhen and Bing Ju had joined hands to obtain the Ice Fiend's silk from the latter. Upon closer inspection, the aura of the Ice Fiend's silk on Duan Tianhen's body was somewhat different from that of Bing Ju. There seemed to be another unique aura. Nye Tian, I'll take your life with this palm strike. Duan Tianhen let out a wild laugh. His blood-red eyes seemed to only have Nye Tian in them. He took a step forward, and the aura around him surged out violently. It was like a raging wave that surged in the air. Nye Tian stood in mid-air and motioned for the others to step back. Duan Tianhen's body already possessed the fifth seal that could resist martial arts restrictions. Now that he had fused with the power of the Ice Fiend's silk, his resistance against martial arts restrictions became even more obvious. Judging from his aura, Duan Tianhen could exert strength equivalent to that of a peak over god. On the other hand, Nye Tian only possessed early-stage high god strength and was being suppressed by martial arts restrictions. The difference in strength was too obvious. Duan Tianhen, since you want to fight, I'll fight with you. Nye Tian let out a deep roar. Forbidden runes gushed out from his body as he simultaneously activated the three great forbidden technique. At the same time, he released the tri-evil sword vein. A towering sword aura pervaded the air. Duan Tianhen was extremely powerful. Nye Tian had to go all out against him. It's still those black runes. Duan Tianhen's lips curled into a cold smile when he saw Nye Tian release the forbidden runes again. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Nye Tian, die. Duan Tianhen was extremely fearful of Nye Tian. He would never let go of an opportunity to kill Nye Tian. He let out a furious roar and slammed his palm down. A thunderous palm energy surged in the void. A gigantic black palm that filled the heavens and earth came crashing down. In an instant, the space around it tightened and the entire world seemed tiny. Nye Tian, watch out! Rui Qianyu's heart tightened and she cried out. Duan Tianhen's strength had increased by several times after fusing with the power of the Ice Fiend's silk. It was extremely terrifying. Nye Tian suddenly raised his head and stared at the gigantic black palm above his head. He thrust the starlight heavenly slash straight at it. Boom! In an instant, sword will, blood chi, and forbidden runes mixed together in a frenzy. 1,000-meter-long sword shadow appeared and soared into the sky. Boom! The next moment, the sword shadow bombarded the gigantic black palm. The gigantic black palm suddenly stopped. In an instant, it was as if time had stopped. There was a low rumbling sound in the air. Endless waves of air rippled out from the center of the collision. The mountains, rocks, grass, and trees within a 1,000-meter radius were directly destroyed. Boom! The two forces collided. They were extremely powerful. They were unable to destroy each other immediately. There was a temporary stalemate. There was a continuous ear-piercing sound in the air. It was the terrifying force that was frantically colliding and devouring each other. Everyone else was stunned. They didn't expect that the first exchange between Nye Tian and Duan Tianhen would be so terrifying. Kaboom! Right at this moment, a cracking sound was heard, and a terrifying crack appeared on the huge sword shadow. Then, the entire sword shadow cracked inch by inch, and collapsed in an instant. Endless sword will rushed into the void, but it couldn't stop the gigantic palm from descending. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed. He suddenly felt a terrifying pressure fall on his head. It was as if there was a huge rock pressing on his chest. It made him feel like he was suffocating. Die! Seeing this, Duan Tianhen roared. His aura surged and the wind and thunder seal surged. The terrifying palm landed with a loud rumble. Rumble! Crack! 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 In the next moment, the palm shadow landed. The earth trembled as if there was an earthquake. The terrifying force surged and the ground cracked. There was a 1,000-meter wide crater on the ground. Nye Tian's body was directly swallowed by the palm's shadow. He was deeply embedded into the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Nye Tian. The sudden scene stunned everyone. Then, Rui Qianyu and the others screamed and stared blankly at the huge crater. Rui Qianyu's eyes trembled. Tears welled up in her eyes. Ha ha ha, you'll definitely die if you take my palm head-on. Duan Tianhen stood in midair and laughed wildly. Nye Tian, your strength is only SOSO. Is that so? However, before he could finish his sentence, a cold voice rang out. Chapter 1737. Nye Tian shot into the air. He stood in the air. Although he was covered in blood, his aura was extremely sharp like a sword. Nye Tian. Rui Qianyu's eyes trembled when she saw the silver-haired figure in the air. Hot tears rolled down her cheeks. The others were stunned. They stared at Nye Tian in disbelief, as if they had seen a ghost. Nye Tian, why you're not dead? Duan Tianhen looked at Nye Tian. His expression was uneasy and his voice was trembling. He had never expected that Nye Tian would be able to survive his palm strike. Just how powerful was Nye Tian's martial body? I've said it before. You don't have the right to kill me. Nye Tianling replied coldly. His body trembled and the blood on his body was washed away. His eyes were sharp and murderous. It had to be said that Duan Tianhen's palm strike was indeed terrifying. Even though Nye Tian had gone all out with his sword, he still couldn't block that palm strike. Fortunately, his martial body was strong enough. Coupled with the timely use of the Astral Soul Shield and the Extreme Wind Heavenly Armor, he managed to survive. Duan Tianhen's current strength had exceeded Nye Tian's expectations. It was indeed rather troublesome. Nye Tian, you've angered me. Duan Tianhen roared furiously when he sensed the disdain in Nye Tian's eyes. The celestial seal of wind and lightning around him became extremely violent. Coupled with the power of the Ice Fiend's silk, a terrifying power of wind and lightning surged behind him. The celestial seal of wind and lightning possessed the elements of wind and lightning. The power of the Ice Fiend's silk possessed 3 elements. It was extremely terrifying. Nye Tian frowned. His face was extremely gloomy. He currently had the strength of an early overgod after activating the 3 forbidden technique. Under normal circumstances, he could easily kill peak overgods. However, he was suppressed by the martial restrictions. Even with the power of the demons and gods helping him resist the restrictions, his true strength was only that of a mid or late high god at most. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult for him to fight Duan Tianhen head-on. Nye Tian, I really want to see what gives you the right to be so arrogant. Duan Tianhen roared in a low voice. His silhouette flickered as he howled, 5 thunders overhead. With a palm strike, 5 streams of black wind and lightning energy appeared. They were like 5 giant snakes, coiling in the void. The surrounding space froze as a terrifying wind and lightning energy surged between the heaven and earth. Boom! 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 5 bolts of wind and lightning roared out at the same time, blasting towards Nyetian. A terrifying aura filled the air, as if it wanted to tear the world apart. Everyone's heart tightened, and their eyes trembled. Duan Tianhen was truly terrifying. He completely disregarded everything and wanted to kill Nyetian. Nyetian furrowed his brows as a pair of astral wings appeared on his back. At the same time, he activated the forbidden space art of the astral river as he slashed out with his sword. The sword's shadow split into 5, blocking the 5 streams of wind and lightning. Duan Tianhen's silhouette flickered as he retreated several steps before stabilizing himself. He stared at Nyetian with a look of terror on his face. Nyetian flapped his astral wings in midair, stabilizing himself. Traces of blood could be seen at the corner of his mouth, and his countenance was as pale as a sheet of paper. It was extremely unsightly to behold. 3 forbidden techniques, the 3 demonic sword range, and the release of fiend god energy. This was already a huge burden on his martial physique. Now that he activated the forbidden space art of the astral river, his martial physique was already pushed to its limit. Under such circumstances, Nyetian wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Nyetian, your strength has far exceeded my expectations. However, I believe that you won't be able to maintain your current state for long. Duan Tianhen couldn't help but smile sinisterly when he saw how pale Nyetian's countenance was. He retreated slightly. There was no need for him to clash head-on with Nyetian now. As long as he waited for Nyetian to reach his limits, he would be able to kill him in one fell swoop. It's enough to kill you. The corners of Nyetian's lips curled up into a cold smile as a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. In the next instant, his silhouette flickered as he unleashed the astral heavenly slash. Sharp sword shadows whistled through the air as they slashed towards Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen coldly laughed. He didn't choose to clash head-on with Nyetian. Instead, he struck out with his palm and retreated madly, dodging the attack head-on. Nyetian's eyes narrowed. Duan Tianhen didn't want to clash head-on with him. This was extremely troublesome. At this moment, the astral energy in his body, the power of the forbidden runes, Yuan Qi, and spirit energy were all being depleted rapidly. If he couldn't defeat or kill Duan Tianhen in this short period of time, he would definitely be the one to lose. Mad Doomsday, counterattack. Thinking of this, Nyetian's eyes trembled as he stabbed out with his sword. The sword was extremely fast, and it moved like a bolt of lightning towards Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen coldly laughed once again as he struck out with his palm. A wave of ice energy appeared and condensed into an ice shield that enveloped his entire body. Purring! The sword shadow landed and the ice shield immediately shattered. Duan Tianhen's body swayed, but he wasn't injured. The speed of Nyetian's attack was so fast that Duan Tianhen couldn't dodge it. However, the power of the attack was too weak, and it couldn't hurt Duan Tianhen at all. Nyetian, you can't hold on much longer. The corners of Duan Tianhen's lips curled up as a look of disdain appeared in his eyes. Nyetian steadied himself as he frowned. Blood flowed continuously from the corner of his mouth. This kind of situation consumed too much of his martial body, and he couldn't bear it. Calm down. Nyetian roared in his heart. At a time like this, he had to be even more calm. Nyetian let out a long sigh. His eyes trembled slightly, but his expression was much calmer. What? You don't dare to attack anymore? Duan Tianhen coldly laughed, his eyes full of disdain. Next move, I'll kill you. The corners of Nyetian's mouth twitched and a crossbow appeared in his hands. With a single thought, the flames of primal chaos surged into the fire beacon crossbow. Without any hesitation, the fire beacon crossbow shot out with all its might. A sky full of sharp arrows whistled through the air, instantly exploding into a sea of fire that pressed down on Duan Tianhen. "You want to hurt me with this kind of attack? Ridiculous." Seeing this, the disdain in Duan Tianhen's eyes became even more obvious. He coldly laughed and an ice shield appeared around him once again. The endless sea of fire rushed towards him and Nie Tian's figure followed it. "Nie Tian, what is he doing?" When the crowd saw that Nie Tian was rushing towards Duan Tianhen, they couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts, "What is Nie Tian doing?" The final move of the AO Sword Technique's 3 ultimate moves, Peerless Sword Spirit. In midair, Nie Tian's wings flapped wildly and he thrust out the starlight heaven slash. The sword will on the blade roared. "He can't hold on anymore?" Seeing this, the corners of Duan Tianhen's mouth twitched and he couldn't hide the joy in his eyes. He concluded that as long as he blocked Nie Tian's sword, Nie Tian would lose the ability to fight again. Duan Tianhen believed that this last move posed no threat to him at all. Nie Tian's figure was like lightning as he charged towards Duan Tianhen. However, the sword will on the blade of his sword was not released. What is he doing?" Seeing that Nie Tian was getting closer and closer to him, Duan Tianhen couldn't help but frown. There was a faint sense of unease in his heart. In a battle between godly state warriors, the distance between them was usually thousands or even tens of thousands of meters. However, Nie Tian was charging towards him. What was he trying to do? Chapter 1738. Nie Tian was in midair. The corners of his lips curled up in an evil smile. His eyes trembled slightly. Then, a frightening spiritual attack surged out and enveloped Duan Tianhen. Activating absolute confinement was his goal in approaching Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen didn't fight Nie Tian head-on. He seemed to be toying with Nie Tian. He was very pleased with himself. His eyes were filled with disdain. Under these circumstances, it was the best time to launch a spiritual attack. Nie Tian's use of the fire beacon crossbow was just a feint. How could he not know that the crossbow's attack could not hurt Duan Tianhen at all? He wanted to give Duan Tianhen a false impression. He wanted Duan Tianhen to think that he was panicking. The more pleased Duan Tianhen was, the weaker the defenses of his divine sense became. The divine sense of a godly state martial artist was already very strong. Moreover, Nie Tian's absolute confinement would not be effective from a distance, especially against an expert like Duan Tianhen. Therefore, he could only take a risk and fight with his life on the line. If the absolute confinement did not affect Duan Tianhen, then he would really be in danger. Duan Tianhen was in a state of shock and bewilderment when he suddenly felt a frightening mental attack, causing him to involuntarily cry out in alarm. In the next moment, his eyes trembled and actually lost their light, becoming lifeless. This is the moment. Seeing that Duan Tianhen was momentarily distracted, Nie Tian couldn't help but inwardly exclaim as he unleashed the sword intent he had accumulated on his sword. In the next moment, countless sword projections condensed into a deadly sword projection that shot towards Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen had lost control of his divine sense. He had no defense at all. Under these circumstances, he was in great danger. Boom! The sword's shadow was like a mountain. It brought with it a frightening murderous intent. Duan Tianhen's divine sense was very strong. He reacted in an instant. However, the sword's shadow was already in front of him. He wanted to act, but it was too late. Bang! The next moment there was a muffled sound. Duan Tianhen's figure was sent flying. He was like a meteor that crashed into the ground. Boom! A wave of dirt rose from the ground. The surroundings were all muddy. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them with their mouths agape, and their expressions became sluggish. No one knew what had happened. They couldn't imagine how Nie Tian had defeated Duan Tianhen. Duan Tianhen. At this moment, a low voice sounded out. Immediately after, a gust of wind swept past, sweeping away the soil on the ground. Duan Tianhen's figure lay in a deep pit on the ground. His body was a bloody mess, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Nie Tian hovered in midair, scanning the area with his divine sense. When he sensed that Duan Tianhen's aura was still there, he couldn't help but smile wryly. A paramount god's martial body is really strong. He's not dead yet. Although Nie Tian had used all his strength for the last sword strike, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. There was not much strength left in his body. After all, Duan Tianhen was an early paramount god, and had a powerful martial body. Furthermore, he also had the fifth seal, which made him many times stronger than the average early paramount god. It was precisely because of this that he was able to resist Nie Tian's lethal strike. However, he was seriously injured. Even though he was a paramount god, it would take him 10 days to half a month to recover. In the end, Nie Tian won the battle. Tianhen. At this time, a figure landed and picked Duan Tianhen up. When Nie Tian saw the figure, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he said, "Lord Elder, you really showed up." The person who appeared was none other than Gao Yuhan. It was very strange. Every time Duan Tianhen was in danger, Gao Yuhan would appear. In fact, Gao Yuhan had been here for a long time, but she hadn't shown herself. Everything that had happened just now had happened so fast that Nie Tian's sword had already descended on her before she could even react. Gao Yuhan hadn't expected that Nie Tian would use a psychic attack in such a desperate situation and turn the tables. It had to be said that Nie Tian was indeed a battle-type genius. If he hadn't taken the risk, the one who would have lost in the end would definitely have been him. Gao Yuhan carried Duan Tianhen in her arms. Without saying anything, she turned and left. Tang 13, follow her. Nie Tian shouted to Tang 13 after a momentary pause. He was already exhausted. It was impossible for him to catch up to Gao Yuhan. Tang 13's body moved and she quickly followed. Duan Tianhen, what fifth seal? Useless. Bing Ju finally reacted. He looked in the direction where Duan Tianhen disappeared and growled in his heart. He had hoped that Duan Tianhen would be able to kill Nie Tian. Unfortunately, Duan Tianhen lost to Nie Tian every time, and it was always a crushing defeat. Nie Tian's figure landed. Rui Qianyu hurried forward to support him. Nie Tian's face was deathly pale. There was no color in it. His face was emaciated, giving off the feeling that he was about to die. He had expended too much energy in the battle just now. He needed a good rest to recover. Bing Ju, aren't you going to scram? Nie Tian turned to Bing Ju and said in a cold tone. Bing Ju took a glance at Nie Tian, then swept his gaze over Lan Yiru, Gui Wushan, and the others. After a moment of pondering, he smiled coldly and said, Lan Yiru, Nie Tian, let's wait and see. You'll regret going against the Bing family. With that, Bing Ju's figure moved and he left. Although Nie Tian was heavily injured, Gui Wuchan was still there. Bing Ju and Gui Wuchan had fought before and he couldn't defeat the latter. Nie Tian watched Bing Ju's disappearing figure and shook his head with a smile. Is the Bing family very powerful? Nie Tian, thank you for your help. Lan Yiru walked over and bowed slightly to express her gratitude. Her eyes showed a trace of worry. Miss Lan, what are you worried about? Gui Wuchan frowned and asked. He and Lan Yiru had run into each other by chance. The two of them had chatted happily and were already very familiar with each other. Bing Ju isn't the strongest among the Bing family's participants in the 9-infant forbidden hunt. Lan Yiru's beautiful eyes flickered, and she looked even more worried. Nie Tian went blank for a moment before he asked, Does Bing Ju have someone more powerful than him? Yes. Lan Yiru nodded. Bing Ju's aunt, Bing Shuanghan, is also participating in the 9-infant forbidden hunt. I've only seen her once and she hasn't appeared since. But I'm sure she's in the 9-infant mountain range. Nie Tian's brow furrowed as his face darkened. He didn't expect Bing Ju to have an aunt behind him. Bingju was already an early-stage paramount god. How strong would his aunt be? Mid-stage paramount god or late-stage paramount god? The 9-infant forbidden hunt only allowed martial artists under 10,000 years old to participate. If a mid-stage or late-stage paramount god showed up, that person's martial Dao talent was too terrifying. One had to know that those who could become a paramount god before the age of 10,000 were absolute monsters. In the 9 major realms, there were only a handful of such monsters. However, the forbidden land of martialism was an alternate dimension. Who knew if it was connected to those mysterious worlds? Bing Shuanghan isn't strong. In fact, she's even weaker than Bingju. Lan Yiru continued, but her expression changed. But she has a very powerful companion with her, the ice demon Silkworm. Chapter 1739. Nie Tian's expression stiffened when he heard the words ice devilish silkworm. It took him a few seconds to recover. You know about the ice demon Silkworm? Lan Yiru asked after seeing Nie Tian's reaction. Nie Tian nodded and bitterly smiled. I didn't think someone would really bring an ice demon Silkworm to the 9-infant forbidden hunt. Previously, Fat Cat noticed that the ice demon Silkworm silk on Bingju and the others were new. She deduced that someone brought an ice demon Silkworm to the forbidden hunt. She didn't think her deduction was true. The ice demon Silkworm was an ancient beast that was as famous as the Golden Leo. It was easy to imagine how powerful it was. Even if Bing Shuanghan was weaker than Bingju, as Lan Yiru said, just the ice demon Silkworm by her side was terrifying enough. Nie Tian took a deep breath and calmed down. He looked at Lan Yiru and asked, Miss Lan, what grudge do you have with the Bing family? Although he knew Bingju killed Lan Yiru's younger sister, he didn't know the specifics. Lan Yiru's eyes flickered and she said, Bingju and I came from the Ice Realm. The Bing family is the ruler of the Ice Realm. The Lan family is a vassal family of the Bing family. Bingju took a fancy to my younger sister and forced her to marry him. My father had to agree for the Lan family. Who knew that my younger sister would be so stubborn? She went to kill Bingju alone and was killed instead. Because of this, the Lan family was exiled to a remote place and will never be able to return to the Ice City. Then, Lan Yiru's eyes trembled and she said, I worked so hard to get the chance to enter the forbidden land of martialism to kill Bingju and avenge my younger sister and family. However, Bingju found out who I was and sent people to follow me. Then, you and Tang 13 appeared and killed the people from the Bing family. That was the entire process. I see. Nie Tian nodded. It seemed that him and Tang 13 killing the people from the Bing family was a great help to Lan Yiru. Unfortunately, Bingju was too powerful. It was impossible for Lan Yiru to avenge herself. Lan Yiru's talent in formations was great, but her martial abilities were nothing. She really shouldn't have joined the 9-infant forbidden hunt. Miss Lan, don't worry. I'll kill Bingju for you. At this moment, Gui Wukan took a step forward with a faint smile. His eyes were filled with determination. Nie Tian gawked at Lan Yiru. From the looks of it, Gui Wukan's actions were truly taking the initiative to express goodwill to Lan Yiru. Nie Tian did not doubt Gui Wuchan's strength, as the latter had yet to reveal his full combat prowess. However, even if Gui Wucan had the strength to kill Bingju, it was impossible for him to defeat Han Shuang, who was behind Bingju, who possessed the demonic ice silkworm. Big brother Gui Wu, thank you very much. Lan Yiru nodded lightly and thanked him. Nie Tian faintly smiled. Since Gui Wucan had taken responsibility for this matter, it would be inconvenient for him to interfere. Nie Tian 13 sent a message. At this moment, Tang Yuyu looked at Nie Tian and said anxiously. Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu had a special way of communicating. Tang 13 had left the power of the ghost eye on Tang Yuyu's body, which could transmit images and information. Nie Tian turned around and saw a ball of light formed by Tang Yuyu's eye power floating in his hand. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen's silhouettes were on it. "We'll head over now." Nie Tian nodded slightly and bid farewell to Gui Wuchan. Gui Wuchan and Lan Yiru did not follow him. Instead, they headed towards Lan Yiru's valley-killing array. After a while, Nie Tian, Rui Qianyu, and Tang Yuyu arrived at the entrance of a valley. Tang 13's silhouette appeared shortly after. Tang 13. Nie Tian's eyes flickered when he saw Tang 13. Tang 13 signaled Nie Tian and the rest not to approach. She then flashed over and said, "The elder is currently saving someone. Let's wait outside." Nie Tian nodded. It seemed that Gao Yuhan was really concerned about Duan Tianhen. However, Nie Tian didn't seem to be in a hurry. After taking a few more pills in a row, a faint trace of blood finally appeared on his pale face. However, in the battle just now, Nie Tian had used up too much energy. A few Dan couldn't solve the problem. He would need to rest for a few days to recover. They waited outside the valley for half a day. Finally, Gao Yuhan's voice was heard, "Come in." "Elder." Nie Tian entered the valley and was surprised to see Gao Yuhan's pale face. There was even a trace of blood at the corner of her eyes. "I'm fine," Gao Yuhan replied coldly. She looked up and down at Nie Tian, as if she was thinking about something. "Master." Just then, Duan Tianhen's silhouette appeared. His face was much rosier. His body had mostly recovered. Seeing Duan Tianhen, Nie Tian couldn't help but be surprised. The latter's recovery speed was too fast. Duan Tianhen's injuries were severe. Even with the nourishment of the Dan, he would need at least 10 days to half a month to recover. He did not expect Gao Yuhan to heal him in half a day. In order to save Duan Tianhen, Gao Yuhan paid a huge price. At this time, Nie Tian couldn't help but suspect that there must be an unusual relationship between Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen. "Tianhen, you're awake." Gao Yuhan looked at Duan Tianhen. Her eyes were full of love. "Master, you." Duan Tianhen was stunned. He felt that Gao Yuhan's attitude had changed. It was hard for him to adapt. "Tianhen, I'm the person you've been looking for," Gao Yuhan said solemnly. Her expression changed. You are." Duan Tianhen was stunned. His eyes became complicated. He couldn't finish his sentence. "Yes." Gao Yuhan nodded and said, "I'm Duan Yuyan." And Duan Tianhen's expression suddenly changed. He cried out and froze on the spot. Nie Tian and the others were stunned. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen were actually aunt and niece. You're really aunt?" After a long time, Duan Tianhen finally reacted. His face was full of shock. He still couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Tianhen, you really look like Big Brother." Gao Yuhan nodded slightly. Her eyes were full of love. "Aunt, it's really you." Duan Tianhen's eyes trembled. He knelt on the ground and tears flowed out of his eyes. When Nie Tian and the others saw this, they walked out of the valley to give the aunt and niece time to recognize each other. After a while, Nie Tian entered the valley again. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen had calmed down a lot. "Nie Tian, I know you have many questions. I'll tell you one by one." Gao Yuhan looked at Nie Tian and said directly, "Lord Elder, are you really aunt and niece to Duan Tianhen?" Nie Tian asked with a frown. "Yes." Gao Yuhan nodded and gave a simple explanation. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen came from a world called the Milky Way region. Gao Yuhan came to the forbidden land of martialism 200,000 years ago to participate in the 9-infant forbidden hunt. She won in the end. However, after Gao Yuhan won, she didn't leave. Instead, she volunteered to stay in the forbidden land of martialism and joined the 9-infant heaven. Step by step, she became an elder of the 9-infant heaven. Previously, Gao Yuhan was called Duan Yuyan. Later, she changed her name to Gao Yuhan. She didn't expect to meet Duan Tianhen in the 9-infant forbidden hunt. She recognized Duan Tianhen at first glance, but she didn't say it. Chapter 1740. Nie Tian listened to Gao Yuhan and nodded. He then asked, Elder, why are you helping us? Gao Yuhan appeared. Not only did she save Duan Tianhen, she also saved Nye Tian and Tang 13 from the guards of the forbidden ground of 9 infants. She also seemed to be very interested in Nye Tian and the others. Because I want to enter the forbidden ground of 9 infants. Gao Yuhan's eyes twinkled. You also want to enter the forbidden ground of 9 infants? Nye Tian and Tang 13 froze and exclaimed. Yes. Gao Yuhan nodded. The reason why I stayed in the forbidden ground of martial arts was because I could increase my strength faster here. When I participated in the forbidden ground of 9 infants, my 9 color pupils had already reached the 7th pupil. Although I had a special way to suppress the power of the devourer, as the devourer grew stronger, I felt like my life was in danger. It was at that time that I accidentally discovered that the evil energy of the Jiao Ying could suppress the power of the devourer. It could suppress it completely. Nye Tian and Rui Qinyu froze and looked at Gao Yuhan. They never thought that the evil energy of the Jiao Ying could suppress the power of the devourer. Gao Yuhan nodded and continued, After that, I secretly investigated the forbidden ground of 9 infants. I discovered that the evil energy of the Jiao Ying came from the demonic cocoon of 9 infants. And then? Nye Tian and Rui Qinyu asked at the same time. Gao Yuhan smiled strangely. As long as I can absorb some of the power of the demonic cocoon of 9 infants, I can completely suppress the power of the devourer. I see. Nye Tian frowned and nodded. It seemed that Gao Yuhan really did have her eyes on the forbidden ground of 9 infants. The forbidden ground of 9 infants was a secret place of the heaven of 9 infants. Gao Yuhan's investigation was probably because she was afraid that the people of the heaven of 9 infants would find out. At that moment, Nye Tian suddenly asked, Elder, how many of your 9 color pupils have you awakened? He was now sure that Gao Yuhan was the person Sun Luo's 7 knights met. According to Senro's 7 knights, Gao Yuhan's 9-colored pupil had already opened up to the 7th pupil, but no one knew which one it was now. 8th pupil. Gao Yuhan nodded and said, Actually, with my strength, I could have opened the 9th pupil a long time ago, but my martial body couldn't withstand the ultimate blood-devouring power, so I didn't dare to open the 9th pupil. The ultimate blood devourer was the terrifying blood devour power produced by the 9 colored pupils when all 9 pupils were activated. It was so terrifying that not even peak paramount gods could stand up to it. Gao Yuhan was only a late paramount god, so she didn't dare to open her 9th eye. She had indeed absorbed some of the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. However, she had not absorbed it from the demonic 9-headed snakelet cocoon. Instead, she had extracted it from the corpses of the mythical beasts in the 9-headed snakelet mountain. It was impossible for the evil energy of Jiao Ying to suppress the power of the blood devourer with this level of evil energy. To completely suppress the power of the blood devourer, he had to absorb it directly from the Jiao Ying demon cocoon, just like Tang 13's ghost eye. Unfortunately, Gao Yuhan did not manage to enter the 9 neonate forbidden ground and did not even see the 9 neonate demon cocoon. At this time, Gao Yuhan suddenly raised her arm. There were several black blood ribbons on her arm, protruding very clearly. It looked very frightening. This is... Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He sensed for a moment and said in shock, The power of the blood devourer. The blood ribbons on Gao Yuhan's arm were formed by the power of the blood devourer. Yes. Gao Yuhan nodded and said, The method I used to suppress the power of the blood devourer was to transfer it to a certain part of my body and then slowly expel it. But this method only treats the symptoms and not the root cause. Instead, it will make the power of the blood devourer stronger and stronger. Now that my 9 color pupils have opened up to the 8th pupil, my body can no longer suppress the power of the blood devourer. If I can't absorb the evil energy of the 9 neonate, I won't live for more than 3 years. Auntie, this... Duan Tianhen was stunned when he heard Gao Yuhan's words, and his eyes couldn't help but tremble. Nie Tian and Rui Qianyu and the others were silent. So Gao Yuhan did not have a method to completely suppress the power of the blood devourer. The evil energy of the nine neonate. Only by absorbing the evil energy of the nine neonate could one completely suppress the power of the blood devourer. Elder, even you can't enter the forbidden ground of the nine neonate. How can we? Nie Tian became cold and asked lightly. Him. Gao Yuhan's eyes trembled, and she looked at Tang 13. Me? Tang 13 was stunned and his face was full of shock. Although his ghost eye leveled up and his strength increased, it was impossible for him to enter the forbidden ground of the nine neonate. The guards of the forbidden ground of the nine neonate can ignore the prohibition spell. Don't you think it strange? Gao Yuhan's eyes were dark as she asked. Why? Nie Tian was stunned and asked. He had noticed this a long time ago, but he couldn't figure it out. It's because they have the evil energy of the nine neonate in their bodies, Gao Yuhan said in a low voice. I'm guessing that the prohibition spell of the nine neonate mountain range was set by the demon cocoon of the nine neonate. This. Everyone was struck dumb at the same time, and couldn't help but take a deep breath. Nobody knew what the demon cocoon of the nine neonate was. The demon cocoon of the nine neonate had yet to awaken, yet it was able to set up such a terrifying prohibition spell. What would happen if it awakens? If you don't believe me, you can let him try using the ghost eye. Gao Yuhan looked at Tang 13 and said softly. Tang 13 froze again and couldn't help but look at Nie Tian. Tang 13, let's try. Nie Tian's eyes froze and he said in a low voice, try to form a shield with your eyes and wrap me up. Okay. Tang 13 agreed. Her eyes flickered and turned into an eerie black color. Then, an infinite amount of energy poured out of her eyes and formed a black light. It surrounded Nie Tian, but it didn't hurt him. The moment he was enveloped by the shield, Nie Tian's face changed and he couldn't help but shout in surprise. Nie Tian, what did you feel? Seeing Nie Tian's reaction, Tang 13 asked anxiously. Nie Tian froze for a second and only reacted after a few seconds. He said in a low voice, inside the shield, my Yuan meridians can't feel any prohibition spells. Everyone was stunned. Their eyes were trembling with astonishment. Tang 13's eye power barrier was able to block out the pressure from the martial path restriction. It seems like I was right. The evil energy of the nine neonate can allow a warrior to ignore prohibition spells. Gao Yuhan grinned, a rare smile on her face. Nie Tian was ecstatic as well. With Tang 13's shield, his abilities will increase tremendously. The shield was like a layer of protection and didn't affect Nie Tian's performance. I didn't think the ghost eye would be this powerful. Tang 13 chuckled, very happy. Elder, why didn't you let Qianye use the 9 color eyes? After a while, Nie Tian calmed down a little and continued to ask. Gao Yuhan glanced at Nie Tian and then looked at Rui Qianyu. Her face darkened and she said, because the evil energy of the 9 neonate can not only suppress the power of the 9 color eyes, but it can also sense the existence of the 9 color eyes and absorb its power. Nie Tian was startled, not understanding what Gao Yuhan meant. Gao Yuhan's eyes flashed and she said, the demon cocoon of the 9 neonate has strong senses. It lives by consuming the blood of warriors. To awaken, however, it must absorb the power of the 9 color eyes. Chapter 1741. Hearing what Gao Yuhan said, Nie Tian immediately understood. Tang 13 sensed the awakening of the demon cocoon right after he woke up. Gao Yuhan and Rainy Thousand Leaves must have used too much of the power of the 9-headed snakelet when they were helping Tang 13 assimilate the evil power of the 9-headed snakelet. A portion of the power of the 9-headed snakelet demonic cocoon had absorbed it, causing it to awaken. Gao Yuhan didn't let Rui Qianyu use the power of the 9-colored eyes to prevent the cocoon from absorbing the power of the 9-colored eyes. Elder, I can feel that the demon cocoon is very active. It seems like it will awaken soon. Tang 13 stepped forward and said to Gao Yuhan. What? Gao Yuhan froze. Her pupils dilated and her cold eyes revealed a hint of panic. She clearly didn't know that the demon cocoon was about to awaken. This. After a while, Gao Yuhan took a deep breath. Her expression was still very panicked. The awakening of the demon cocoon was too scary and she couldn't accept it. Tang 13, what do you feel now? At this time, Nye Tian looked at Tang 13 and asked. Because Gao Yuhan had used the 9 colored eyes again, Nye Tian was worried that the demon cocoon would awaken even faster. The demon cocoon is more active than before. It is absorbing energy from the forbidden area like crazy and preparing to awaken. Tang 13 nodded heavily. Her expression was serious. He was the only one who could feel the demon cocoon. He knew what kind of terrifying power was contained in the demon cocoon. That power made him feel hopeless. Nye Tian looked at Gao Yuhan and said solemnly, Lord Elder, we must enter the forbidden land of 9-headed fierce beasts immediately to stop the awakening of the 9-headed fierce beast demon cocoon. Gao Yuhan calmed down. She looked at Nye Tian and said, Nye Tian, your condition is too bad. You must recover first. Yes. Tang 13 and the others nodded. Nye Tian didn't look good right now and needed to recover. Nye Tian thought about it and nodded in agreement. He could not enter the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants in his current state. Otherwise, he would become a burden to the others. A day later, Nye Tian stood up and sensed his own aura. It was much better than before. Although he had yet to recover to his peak condition, he had recovered by more than half. Nye Tian, are you all right? Rui Qinyu asked in surprise when she saw that Nye Tian had stood up. It's fine now. Nye Tian smiled faintly. Then, he looked at Gao Yuhan and said, Elder, we can go now. Gao Yuhan's eyes widened. She was obviously very surprised. She didn't expect Nye Tian's recovery ability to be so strong. Yesterday, she clearly felt that Nye Tian's martial body was extremely weak. In just a day, Nye Tian had almost recovered. The strength of his martial body was unimaginable. All right. Gao Yuhan didn't say much and nodded heavily. Elder, before we enter the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants, I still need to find someone, Nye Tian said faintly as he walked up. Who are you looking for? Gao Yuhan was stunned. A friend. Nye Tian smiled faintly. He was going to find Gue Wuchan. There were 2 reasons why he wanted to find Gue Wuchan. First, he was the disciple of Gue Wu Quangsha. Nye Tian was worried that he might be targeted by the Bing family. Second, Nye Tian knew that Gue Wuchan was very strong. If they entered the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants with him, he would be a good helper. You guys go find someone. Tian Hen and I will wait for you outside the forbidden ground. Gao Yuhan didn't ask too much. After nodding slightly, she moved and left with Duan Tianhen. Nye Tian and Tang 13 looked at each other and headed towards the killing array in the valley. After a while, Nye Tian and the others arrived outside the valley. Nye Tian heard the sounds of fighting and frowned. He then moved towards it. At the same time, outside the valley, 2 figures stood in midair. They were Bing Ju and Lan Yiru. Behind each of them stood a person. Behind Lan Yiru was Gue Wuchan. Behind Bing Ju was a woman in white. Her facial features were exquisite, but her eyes were cold and filled with viciousness. This woman was none other than Bing Ju's aunt, Bing Shuanghan. Kill her. Bing Shuangshan's eyes flickered. She didn't want to waste time on Lan Yiru. As she spoke, her eyes were locked on Gue Wuchan. If the latter made any strange movements, she wouldn't show any mercy. Gue Wuchan's eyes flickered. He was also paying attention to Bing Shuangshan. Although Bing Shuangshan was weaker than Bing Ju, Gue Wuchan could feel that Bing Shuangshan's icy aura was much stronger than Bing Ju's. Therefore, he didn't dare to be careless. All right. Bing Ju's lips curled into a cold smile. The ice demon silk around him surged and condensed into numerous ice tentacles that pounced towards Lan Yiru. Lan Yiru's beautiful eyes trembled when she saw this. She activated the formation around her body. The formation runes surged in the air and formed a protective formation shield. Bang bang bang! Crack crack crack! The ice demon tentacles bombarded the protective formation shield. A dull sound came from the air. The protective formation shield couldn't withstand the impact and collapsed instantly. The terrifying ice demon tentacles stretched out and grabbed towards Lan Yiru. Miss Lan! Gui Wuchan couldn't help but cry out. He moved his body and attacked with his sword. However, in the next moment, a strange scene happened. All of a sudden, Gui Wuchan felt the space around him freeze up, while a frightening ice-cold energy came crashing down on him from all directions, intending to crush him to death. Die, you ant! Bing Shuangshan's beautiful eyes were extremely cold. Her lips curled into a cold smile. The icy force in her body was far stronger than Bing Ju's. She could actually freeze the space without making a sound. Damn it! Gui Wuchan roared and resisted with all his might. He used his powerful sword essence to block the terrifying icy force. However, he only had the ability to protect himself. It was impossible for him to save Lan Yiru. Lan Yiru, you think you can take revenge? In your next life? Bing Ju's voice resounded in the air. He seemed to have already seen the scene of Lan Yiru being killed in one blow. He laughed hysterically. Lan Yiru's pretty face froze. She felt the most realistic killing intent. However, at this moment, something strange happened. Boom! In the void, a ray of sword essence suddenly burst out at an extremely fast speed. Like the wind and lightning, it attacked Bing Ju to kill. Bing Ju felt a cold killing intent and couldn't help but frown. He suddenly turned around and saw a deadly sword shadow coming towards him. Ant save! He wanted to resist, but it was too late. He shouted at the critical moment, but he couldn't even finish his last sentence. The murderous sword shadow poured down and bloomed in the air. Bing Ju didn't even have the chance to scream before he was swallowed by the sword shadow. Not even his bones were left. Chapter 1742. Nie Tian stood in midair and slashed down with his sword, killing Bing Ju. The moment the sword shadow landed, everyone's eyes widened in shock. The scene was dead silent. No one expected that Nie Tian could kill Bing Ju with one strike. Ju Er. After a long time, Bing Shuanghan finally came to her senses. She howled in agony. How could she not be angry when she saw her nephew killed with one strike? Gui Wuchan and Lan Yiru were still in a daze. Nie Tian. At this moment, Tang 13 arrived and shouted with a faint smile. The reason why Nie Tian's one strike was so terrifying was that he had a layer of eye barrier around his body. It allowed him to ignore the martial arts prohibition formation and unleash the full strength of an early-stage high god. In addition, the attack was too unexpected. Bing Ju was not prepared and was killed in one strike. Gui Wukan, Miss Lan, are you all right? Nie Tian looked at the two of them and asked in an indifferent tone. The two finally came to their senses and said that they were fine. Luckily, Nie Tian came in time. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Bastard, pay for Ju Er's death. Right at this moment, Bing Shuanghan roared. Her delicate face became ferocious. She struck out with her palm and an endless amount of cold energy gushed out. Several huge ice pillars appeared in the void and rushed towards Nie Tian. What a terrifying cold energy! Feeling the bone-chilling cold energy, Nie Tian narrowed his eyes and his face darkened. He was shocked. The cold energy released by Bing Shuanghan was extremely terrifying. It froze the entire space, and even the sky was covered with a layer of white frost. Nie Tian, watch out! Tang 13 shouted and signaled the others to step back. Nie Tian's eyes flickered and became determined. He opened the 3 demonic sword veins in his body and swung his sword. A sword shadow whizzed out and turned into several sword shadows in the air, blocking the terrifying ice pillars. Boom! Explosions rang out in the air as the sword will and the cold force wreaked havoc, causing the void to tremble. Ice Frost frowned slightly and could not help but look surprised. She did not expect Nietion's strength to be so strong that he could resist her ice demon's cold power. Nietion's figure retreated 100 meters away. A lot of the ice demon's cold power seeped into his body, almost freezing all the meridians and blood in his body. He let out a low roar, and a mighty dragon aura surged out of the supreme dragon vein, forcing the ice demon's cold energy out. "You are Ice Frost, right?" Nietion took a step forward and stared at Ice Frost. He was a little surprised. He did not expect Bing Shuanghan to be so young. He was even younger than Bing Ju. However, the Ice Devil's cold energy surrounding Han Shuang was obviously much more terrifying than absolute ices. It was at least several times more tyrannical. Bastard, die! Bing Shuanghan was extremely furious. He did not give Nietion a chance to speak at all. His figure moved, and another palm struck towards Nietion. Boom! Crack, crack, crack! Wherever the palm passed, the ice demon's cold energy surged, and large areas of space were frozen. Starfire incinerates the sea. Seeing this, Nietion slashed across the sky with the starlight heavenly slash. A fiery sword shadow whizzed out where the sword tip pointed. It was like a fire dragon rolling over. Boom! The two clashed again, and the space could not help but shake. Nietion's figure shook again, and a trace of blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. The ice demon's cold energy in Bing Shuanghan's body was extremely terrifying. She was almost unaffected by the restrictions of martial arts, so her battle prowess was close to that of a mid or even late overgod. Although Nietion had the protection of the eye barrier, he was only an early high god. The difference in strength between the two was very obvious. In a head-on clash, Nietion was constantly being suppressed. Nietion steadied himself and looked at Bing Shuanghan with burning eyes. He was actually slightly fearful. What he was fearful of was not Bing Shuanghan's strength, but the ice demon silkworm beside her. If Bing Shuanghan was forced into a corner, she would definitely use the ice demon silkworm. It was an ancient beast, and its strength was undeniable. Still not dead yet. Ice Frost's several powerful attacks were blocked by Nietion, which made the anger in his heart even more intense. With a low roar, the Ice Devil's cold power in his body became even more terrifying. Endless cold power surged, as if it was going to freeze the whole world. At the same time, Bing Shuanghan's face also underwent a strange change. She slowly turned into the appearance of an ice silkworm. It was extremely strange. She looked 60% human and 40% silkworm. Seeing this, Nietion could not help but gasp. The coldness in the space pressed down on him. The bone-chilling cold was like maggots in his bones. It was difficult to get rid of. Die. In the next moment, Bing Shuanghan let out a shrill cry. She then slapped down with her palm, and the terrifying ice demon's cold energy bloomed. It turned into a frost claw and pressed down. Nietion frowned and his eyes trembled again. He could feel that this attack was even more terrifying than before. The bone-chilling cold seemed to be able to seep into his soul, making him tremble. However, at this time, Nietion still did not want to use the 3 forbidden skills because it was too much pressure on his martial body. At this time, he had not recovered to his best condition. If he used the 3 forbidden skills again, it would consume more of his martial body. Boom! Nietion's body shook, and the 9 dragon veins in his body began to operate crazily. Endless dragon energy surged out and formed a thunder sea behind him. In the next moment, in the thunder sea, a giant golden dragon rolled out, and the terrifying dragon power shook the earth. Roar! The dragon's roar echoed through the sky. The giant golden dragon's huge body rolled out and rushed towards the frost claw. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, the two terrifying forces collided. The frost claws ruthlessly clawed at the crimson gold giant dragon. Endless cold power surged into the dragon's body, and the crimson gold giant dragon's huge body was rapidly frozen. "Break for me!" Bing Shuanghan roared and suddenly exerted force. The giant golden dragon's body shook and directly collapsed in the void. The terrible dragon energy raged in the space. At the same time that the crimson golden dragon collapsed, the frost claws could not withstand the huge impact and directly exploded, turning into endless cold energy that dissipated into the void. Nie Tian's body retreated again, and at the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. On the other hand, Bing Shuanghan was unharmed, but her eyes were extremely vicious, flashing with a terrible poisonous light. She could not wait to eat Nie Tian alive. She did not expect that Nie Tian's strength was so strange that he could hold on until this point. Nie Tian stabilized his body and looked at Bing Shuanghan, but he did not speak. "Brat, no matter how strong you are today, you must die." Bing Shuanghan's strange eyes stared at Nie Tian, and a vicious voice rolled out from her throat. The next moment she abruptly raised her palm. The void trembled slightly, and a strange creature with a huge body appeared. Immediately, the entire space was tightened, and the frost power between heaven and earth became several times stronger. Everything within tens of thousands of meters seemed to have fallen into an ice cellar, covered in frost and snow. Chapter 1743. Up in the air, Nie Tian looked at the white beast next to Bing Shuang, his eyes trembling. In order to kill him, Bing Shuang had released the Ice Fiend Silkworm. The Ice Fiend Silkworm was an ancient beast that was as famous as the Golden Leo. It was as strong as a peak paramount god. "You killed Zhuer. Today, all of you will pay for his death." Bing Shuang's eyes were bloodthirsty, and his expression became even more bizarre. His killing intent condensed into a cold power that pressed down on Nie Tian and the others. "Nie Tian, what do we do?" Tang 13's eyes trembled as she sensed the terrifying coldness in the air. Nie Tian didn't say anything, but thought to himself, "Do I have to use the 3 forbidden arts again?" He wasn't sure how much power the 3 forbidden arts could unleash, and he had used them too many times already. His martial body couldn't take it anymore. At that moment the little fat cat's voice rang out, warning Nie Tian, "Nie Tian, there's something strange about this ice devil silkworm. It doesn't seem to be a pure ice devil silkworm, but a mutant." "What do you mean?" Nie Tian forced himself to calm down. "This ice fiend silkworm isn't very strong. At most, it has the strength of an early-stage paramount god." Fat Cat chuckled. Nie Tian's face lit up, but then froze. The Ice Fiend Silkworm was just a mutant, so it wasn't as strong as he had imagined. It only had the strength of an early-stage paramount god. But the Ice Fiend Silkworm wasn't affected by the restrictions of martial arts. Facing an early-stage paramount god, Nie Tian had no chance of winning. "Go to hell." At that moment, Ice Frost couldn't wait any longer. With an angry roar, the demonic ice silkworm let out a shrill cry. Its huge body moved and pressed down on Nie Tian. The Ice Fiend Silkworm released 2 clumps of Ice Fiend Silkworm silk. The black silk was like a long snake, and it pounced forward. Seeing this, Nie Tian's eyes couldn't help but freeze. Then, the sword chi around him surged and he slashed out. However, the 2 balls of Ice Fiend's silk directly penetrated Nie Tian's sword images, and they transformed into sharp Ice Fiend blades that assaulted him. "Not good!" Nie Tian cried out. He wanted to resist, but it was too late. Bang! Bang! 2 muffled sounds rang out almost at the same time. Nie Tian's figure flew out like a kite with a broken string, drawing a bloody trail in the air. Nie Tian! When the others saw this scene, they all cried out in surprise, and their eyes trembled. Even someone as powerful as Nie Tian was unable to withstand a casual attack from the Ice Demon Silkworm. This was too terrifying. Nie Tian was in midair. The wings on his back suddenly spread open and flapped abruptly, finally stabilizing his body. But right now, his injuries were extremely severe. His entire body was drenched in blood, and his bones and blood had all been frozen. It seemed as if they would shatter at any moment. Godly demon power, release! Nyetian roared in his heart. The 32 godly demon powers surged wildly, forcibly dispersing the Ice Fiend's cold power in his body. His body shook slightly, and he spat out a mouthful of filthy blood. Nyetian's complexion turned slightly better, and his eyes darkened as he looked at Ice Shuanghan and the Ice Fiend Silkworm. The Ice Fiend Silkworm's strength was too strong, and it was beyond his expectations. Just a casual attack just now had directly injured him. It was really terrifying. The Ice Fiend Silkworm was indeed an ancient fierce beast. This Ice Fiend Silkworm was just a mutant. He really didn't know how terrifying a purebred Ice Fiend Silkworm's strength was. Not dead. Ice Shuanghan stood tall in the sky, looking down at Nyetian. Her eyes were arrogant and cold, and at the same time, there was a trace of surprise. She was very clear about the Ice Fiend Silkworm's combat strength. That attack just now, even an ordinary Paramount God martial artist would be in danger. It was really strange that Nyetian could actually withstand it. Brat, your strength is indeed beyond my expectations. But everything ends here. Ice Shuanghan smiled coldly, and then took a step forward. The coldness in the air intensified. Her next move would definitely take Nyetian's life. Is that so? Nyetian Tianling replied coldly. Then, his body moved, and a terrifying sword aura was released from his body. Countless forbidden runes were released. Nyetian didn't want to use the forbidden runes, but under such circumstances, he had no other choice. Nyetian, let me help you. Tang 13's body moved, and she came to Nyetian's side. Me too. Gui Wuchan's voice was heard almost at the same time. 3 figures stood in the air, fighting side by side. You 3 ants! Ice Shuanghan sneered, and her eyes were filled with extreme disdain. In her opinion, no matter how many people appeared, there would only be one end for them, and that was death. You underestimated the ghost martial art style. That's your biggest mistake. Gui Wuchan smiled faintly, and a long black sword appeared in his hand. It was his spirit sword, the 8 desolate ghost martial. Sword aura surged around Gui Wuchan, and the sword will behind him kept rolling, forming a giant skull in the air. His sword will has become stronger again. Nyetian could not help but frown when he felt Gui Wuchan's sword will, and he exclaimed in his heart. At this time, the sword will released by Gui Wuchan was stronger than before. Perhaps he had not shown his true strength before. Ghost martial space, open! In the next moment, Gui Wuchan roared, and then the skull behind him expanded infinitely, covering the space within tens of thousands of meters, including Ice Shuanghan and the Ice Fiend Silkworm. What a powerful sword will barrier! Nyetian felt the sword will in the space, and his face changed again. Gui Wuchan's strength was even greater than what he had expected. Before coming to the forbidden land of martialism, Gui Wuchan was a mid-overgod. Now, he was already a late overgod. It was enough to show how powerful his martial talent was. Tang 13, your power of the eye can resist restrictions of martial arts. Merge your power of the eye into my sword will. Gui Wuchan smiled slightly and said to Tang 13. Yes. Tang 13 nodded heavily. Her eyes flickered, and endless power of the eye surged out, slowly merging with the ghost martial space. The ghost martial space merged with the power of the ghost eye. Within this space, restrictions of martial arts were no longer effective. The Ice Fiend Silkworm was not suppressed by restrictions in the first place, so the ghost martial space had no effect on it. On the other hand, Ice Shuanghan was no longer suppressed by restrictions of martial arts in the ghost martial space. However, Ice Shuanghan was not powerful, so it did not affect the overall situation. As long as Nyetian and the others could kill the Ice Fiend Silkworm, the battle would be won. Nyetian, Do you see the black area between the Ice Fiend Silkworm's forehead? At that moment, Fat Cat's voice rang out, reminding Nyetian. Yes, Nyetian nodded heavily. That's called the Ice Demon's heart. It's the Ice Fiend Silkworm's weakness, and it's also the place where it spins Ice Demon silk. As long as the Ice Demon's heart is taken out, the Ice Fiend Silkworm is done for. But remember, do not destroy the Ice Demon's heart. Fat Cat said darkly, and a strange light flickered in his eyes. He was not worried for Nyetian and the others at all. Why? Nyetian frowned and asked in surprise. The Ice Demon's heart is a good item. I have other uses for it. Fat Cat chuckled and did not explain too much. Chapter 1744. Okay. Nyetian stared at the black area on the demonic ice silkworm's forehead and nodded heavily. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Woo! At this time, the demonic ice silkworm suddenly let out a strange roar. Following which, the demonic ice chi in the air increased in intensity, as if it wanted to freeze everyone in the area. Nyetian felt the terrifying cold seeping into his body. Even though he had activated the astral shield, he was unable to stop the cold from invading his body. Faint ice crystals formed on the surface of his body. The meridians in his body were also affected by the cold, causing them to stiffen. Gue Wuchan's situation was similar to that of Nyetian. Ice crystals formed all over his body. Tang 13, on the other hand, was not affected by the demonic ice chi with the help of her ghost eye. 3 ants prepared to die. Its frosty eyes flickered and it let out a fierce roar. Immediately after, the demonic ice silkworm's huge body moved. Immediately, an even more frigid cold power surged towards Nyetian and the others like raging wave. Seeing this, Nyetian and Gue Wuchan moved at the same time. 2 terrifying sword auras soared into the sky, perfectly fusing together in the air. The 2 of them were swordsmen with a deep understanding of swordsmanship. Apart from this, their teamwork was also very good. Bang! The 2 sword auras combined into one, forming a 1,000-meter-long sword shadow that flew towards the demonic ice silkworm. At this time, Nyetian could feel that Gue Wuchan's strength had increased a lot in the ghost martial space. Rumble! The sword shadow was like a mountain, valiantly bombarding the demonic ice silkworm. However, it was blocked by the demonic ice chi around the demonic ice silkworm. It was as if the demonic ice silkworm had collided with a huge ice mountain. The sword shadow suddenly turned sluggish. Following which, the space seemed to have stopped. The demonic ice chi spread out, enveloping the sword shadow and directly freezing it. Bang! In the next moment, the sword shadow shook slightly and directly collapsed. The sword intent turned into a sky full of ice blades that shot out in all directions. Nyetian and Gue Wuchan retreated at the same time. Nevertheless, they were still a step too late, causing their bodies to be slashed by the sharp ice blades, leaving behind several frightening wounds that flowed with blood. Moreover, the wound was permeated with ice magic power, so it could not be healed immediately. The 2 of them steadied themselves and endured the pain. The power of the demonic ice silkworm had exceeded their expectations, especially the cold power of the demonic ice silkworm, which was extremely terrifying. Even if the 2 of them worked together, they would not be able to break the demonic ice shield that enveloped the demonic ice silkworm. Inside the ghost martial dimension, Nyetian and Gue Wuchan weren't affected by the restrictions of the martial path. One of them was an early overgod, while the other was a late overgod. Even so, they were still a bit weak against the Ice Devil Silkworm, which was as strong as an early paramount god. You 2 little ants, you're not bad. You were actually able to block a head-on attack from the Icy Devil Silkworm. Seeing that Nyetian and Gue Wuchan were injured, Bing Shuang could not help but sneer, his eyes surging with killing intent. Nyetian, are you all right? Gue Wuchan let out a long breath and could not help but look at Nyetian. He knew that Nyetian would not be able to maintain this state for long, and he could not help but reveal a worried look in his eyes. I'm fine. Nie Tian nodded solemnly, but his eyes could not help but tremble. If he could not even break through the ice magic power around the demonic ice silkworm, how could he obtain the ice demon's heart? Boom! At this moment, the huge body of the demonic ice silkworm rolled over again. The terrifying ice devil silkworm's silk was like countless tentacles, pouncing towards Nie Tian and Gui Wuchan. Nie Tian and Gui Wuchan looked at each other, and then they moved and attacked again. An even more terrifying sword slashed out. The sword's shadow was like a dragon, blasting towards the demonic ice silkworm. Boom! The combined sword attack blocked the demonic ice silkworm's attack, but the two figures were forced to retreat again. More wounds appeared on their bodies, and the air was filled with a strong smell of blood. Nie Tian and Gui Wuchan stabilized their bodies, but their expressions became solemn. This is not the way to go. I have to think of a way to get close to the demonic ice silkworm. Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly, and he said in his heart, "Still not dead." Han Shuang's eyes turned cold, and the killing intent in her eyes intensified. Nie Tian and Gui Wuchan joined hands to resist the demonic ice silkworm's attack. This greatly surprised Han Shuang. She also did not expect that the two of them would be so strong. However, it was useless. It did not affect the situation of the battle, and only allowed the two of them to struggle at death's door for a while. Gui Wuchan, Tang 13, cover me. Nie Tian could feel the forbidden runes in his body slowly weakening, and he knew that he could not hold on for much longer. He could not help but let out a low roar, and then a pair of star soul wings appeared on his back. With a sudden flap, he directly pounced towards the demonic ice silkworm. Nie Tian, Gui Wuchan, and Tang 13 shouted at the same time. They did not expect that Nie Tian would rush over at this time. Nie Tian. Outside the ghost martial space, Rui Qianyu and the rest were stunned, and their hearts jumped to their throat. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. Courting death. Han Shuang saw that Nie Tian was rushing over, and her eyes turned cold. She roared and slapped both her palms together. Two terrifying demonic ice silkworms' cold energy came crashing down, turning into 2,000-meter-long icicles, smashing towards Nie Tian. However, Nie Tian did not dodge, and ignored it as if he did not see it, and continued to rush forward. He had absolute trust in Tang 13 and Gui Wuchan, and he believed that the two of them would protect him. Ghost martial style, desolate sword slash. Seeing this, Gui Wuchan's body moved, and with a roar, the 8 desolate ghost martial style slashed down, blasting towards one of the icicles. Ghost Eye, Ghost Blade Demon Slash. At the same time, Tang 13's body moved as well. Her eyes flashed, and a terrifying black blade whistled through the air. Although it was not as powerful as the sword shadow, it was extremely sharp. Boom! Boom! The next moment, 2 explosions rang out, and the 2 icicles in the air were shattered. Very good. Nie Tian felt the pressure on his head disappear, and the corner of his mouth twitched. The wings on his back fluttered, and his speed increased as he rushed towards the demonic ice silkworm. You want to get close to the demonic ice silkworm? What a joke! When Bing Shuang saw this, he sneered and said arrogantly, "The ice demon shield of the ice fiend silkworm is extremely strong. Unless you are a paramount god martial artist, there is no way you can break it." Han Shuang could see that Nie Tian was heading towards the demonic ice silkworm's heart of the demonic ice silkworm. He was obviously going to attack the heart of the demonic ice silkworm. Unfortunately, the demonic ice silkworm's defense was extremely strong. With Nie Tian's strength, it was impossible for him to break through the demonic ice shield. Just now, Nie Tian and Gui Wuchan had joined forces, and yet they could not break through the demonic ice shield. Now, with his strength alone, how could he break through it? Is that so? Nie Tian's eyes flashed, and the corner of his mouth curled up into an evil smile. Then, his body surged with the power of the stars, and the forbidden space of the galaxy was activated. At the same time, a terrifying dragon chi condensed into a sea of lightning behind him. Huh! Han Shuang saw this, and could not help but tremble. What are you trying to do? Chapter 1745. In midair, Nie Tian's figure stood upright with an ugly expression on his face. Although he had activated the forbidden space of the Milky Way, he still couldn't resist the invasion of the ice demon's cold energy. The space dozens of meters away from his body had already been frozen. The meridians in his body had also become stiff. Even the 9 dragon veins were covered with ice demon cold crystals. The ice demon silkworm's enormous body released a bone-piercing chill. At that moment, it seemed to have sensed something frightening and started to retreat. Nie Tian didn't care about the ice demon's cold energy in his body at all. The 9 dragon veins revolved crazily, releasing waves of dragon energy that enveloped the ice demon silkworm. Although most of the dragon energy was frozen, a small portion of it still seeped into the ice demon barrier around the ice demon silkworm's body. Nie Tian, what is he doing? Tang 13 and Gui Wushan were stunned. They didn't know what Nie Tian was trying to do by risking his life to approach the ice demon silkworm. Nie Tian, that's a good idea. Little Fat Cat's voice suddenly rang out, filled with joy. Nie Tian's lips curled up slightly, but his expression was extremely stiff. A layer of ice crystals formed on his face. He was going to use dragon energy to weaken the ice demon shield of the ice demon silkworm. Previously, when the ice demon's cold energy seeped into Nie Tian's body, he had used dragon energy to force it out. Therefore, he guessed that the dragon energy would definitely weaken the ice demon silkworm's ice demon shield. As the dragon energy flowed into the ice demon shield, Nie Tian clearly felt that the ice demon's cold energy around him had weakened a little. This made him ecstatic. He had guessed correctly. The dragon energy could indeed weaken the ice demon shield. However, at that moment, his energy was almost exhausted and he didn't have the strength to launch a final attack. In an instant, Nie Tian felt the 3 forbidden skill runes recede. His strength abruptly returned to early-stage high god level. When he activated the 3 forbidden skills, his martial body was already injured. In addition, he was severely injured by the ice demon silkworm and had lost a lot of blood energy. At that moment, he was like an arrow at the end of its flight. Gui Wuchan, Tang 13, attack. The aura radiating from Nie Tian's body weakened as he felt a frightening chill assaulting him, seemingly wanting to freeze his entire body. Nevertheless, he paid no attention to it as he shouted towards Gui Wucan. Gui Wucan and Tang 13 looked at each other. Both of them could feel that the demonic ice silkworm's cold energy had weakened considerably, and immediately understood what was going on. Gui Wuchan's figure flickered as the 8 desolate ghost warriors streaked across the sky. Sending a sword rumbling downwards, a majestic sword image that was as majestic as a mountain appeared. At the same time, Tang 13's ghostly eye opened again. A black claw materialized in the air and slashed forward. You want to hurt my icy devil silkworm? Impossible. At this moment, Ice Frost also reacted. With a low roar, he sent out a palm strike. Ice cones filled the sky, and like a rain of arrows, they flew towards Gui Wucan and Tang 13. Not good. Gui Wucan and Tang 13 roared at the same time. Ice Frost's strength was also very strong. It was more than enough to block their attacks. However, at this moment, Nie Tian turned around and looked. The corners of his mouth curled up in an evil manner as he murmured, Gui Wucan, Tang 13, thank you. As soon as he finished speaking, Nie Tian's mind moved, and a small golden beast that was 3 to 4 meters long appeared beside him. It was Jean 2. In about half a month, Jean 2's body had grown a lot. Little guy, it's all up to you now. Nie Tian's eyes flashed with a hint of passion as he said indifferently. Letting Gui Wucan and Tang 13 attack was just a feint, to draw Ice Frost away. The real killer move was Gene 2. Although the demonic ice barrier had been weakened, it was still very strong. Even if Gue Wutsan and Tang 13 joined forces, they might not be able to break it because they were too far away. Nie Tian believed that the power of the golden flame within Gene 2's body was enough to break the demonic ice barrier. Roar! After Gene 2 appeared, it bared its teeth and roared angrily. A ball of golden light gushed out of its body and enveloped Nie Tian. In an instant, Nie Tian felt much more comfortable. The cold energy in his body was dispersed in an instant. Gene 2's body moved and its 4 hooves galloped. It turned into a ball of golden flame and rushed towards the demonic ice silkworm. Woo! The demonic ice silkworm seemed to have sensed something and let out a strange cry. Boom! In the next moment, the ball of golden flame rushed towards the demonic ice silkworm. After a muffled sound, it broke the demonic ice barrier. Crack! 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 Immediately after, there were countless crisp sounds in the air. The demonic ice barrier cracked, and the terrible cold energy of the demonic ice barrier was dispersed by the power of the golden flame. The power of the golden flame and the demonic ice barrier, one fire and one ice, had a natural counter to each other. Unfortunately, the demonic ice silkworm was only a mutant, while Gene 2 was a purebred. Therefore, the power of Gene 2's golden flame was purer than the demonic ice silkworm's demonic ice barrier. Little fella, good job. Nie Tian saw that Gene 2 had broken the demonic ice barrier, and couldn't help but exclaim. On the other side, Han Shuang blocked the combined attack of Gue Wushan and Tang 13. He turned around and saw that the demonic ice barrier had been broken. He couldn't help but be startled. Roar! At this time, Gene 2 let out a low roar. Then, like a ball of fire, he flew towards the black area between the demonic ice silkworm's eyebrows. Woo! The demonic ice silkworm sensed danger and let out a strange cry. Immediately, an endless amount of demonic ice silkworm's silk rushed out. However, before the silk could even touch Gene 2, it was melted by the surging power of Gene 2's golden flame. The demonic ice silkworm's huge body trembled. It wanted to escape, but it was too late. Puff! Gene 2's body was like lightning. He drilled into the demonic ice silkworm's forehead. No! Han Shuang knew that the demonic ice silkworm's weakness was the heart of the demonic ice silkworm. Seeing this, he couldn't help but let out an ear-piercing scream. Nie Tian was also surprised. He didn't expect Gene 2 to be so terrifying. He didn't fear the demonic ice cold at all. If he had known this earlier, he wouldn't have been so afraid of the demonic ice cold. The others were also dumbfounded. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Boom! At this time, the demonic ice silkworm's huge body suddenly trembled. Then, it began to violently roll around and let out miserable cries. It was obvious that it was in great pain. Boom! Boom! Crack! 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 The demonic ice silkworm's body continued to roll around. The terrifying demonic ice cold was released. The surrounding space was directly frozen. Countless ice cones appeared in the air. My demonic ice silkworm! Han Shuang saw this scene and his eyes trembled with anger. Immediately after, in the blink of an eye, the demonic ice silkworm's huge body suddenly stagnated. It suddenly stopped and froze in midair. Immediately after, a small golden beast drilled out of its huge body. It had a black demonic ice vortex in its mouth. Everyone looked at Gene Tuesday. Their eyes were dull and their expressions were stiff. It was hard to imagine that such a powerful demonic ice silkworm would die in the hands of Gene Tuesday. Roar, roar, roar. Gene 2's body moved. Like a ball of golden lightning, it came to Nie Tian's side. It roared proudly, as if it was taking credit from Nie Tian. Nie Tian looked at Gene Tuesday. His eyes were fixed on the black demonic ice vortex in the latter's mouth. He was stunned and said, "This is the heart of the demonic ice demon." At the same time, Fat Cat's excited voice was heard. Chapter 1746. Is this the Ice Devil's heart? Nie Tian stared blankly at the black vortex of frost power in Jin Tu's mouth. Ha! I got the heart of the Ice Demon. At the same time, Fat Cat's laughter could be heard. She was ecstatic. The heart of the Ice Demon was where the life force of the Ice Demon silkworm was gathered. It contained great power and could be used to rebuild Sakra's body. Thank you, Boss Chinchilla. Sakra knew what Fat Cat was thinking. He smiled and was equally excited. Nie Tian raised his hand, and the Ice Demon's heart appeared in his palm. His entire arm was covered in a layer of black ice crystals. Black ice crystals appeared in the air, and it was extremely strange. Good job, little guy. Nie Tian felt the aura of the heart of the Ice Demon. He smiled faintly and patted Jin Tu's head. Roar! Jin Tu responded. Her golden eyes flashed with a strange light. Nie Tian flipped his palm and was about to put away the heart of the Ice Demon. Give me back the heart of the Ice Demon! However, right at that moment, a frosty voice rang out, sounding extremely shrill in the air. Immediately after, she moved. Her entire body was covered in ice devil silk, which morphed into countless ice tentacles that pressed down towards Nie Tian. The Ice Demon silkworm was already dead. Ice frost would not allow Nie Tian to take the heart of the Ice Demon. Nie Tian's eyebrows furrowed as his expression flickered. He was very weak at this moment and could not block Ice Frost's attack. Nie Tian, Tang 13 and Gue Wuchan finally reacted and shouted at the same time. They immediately acted, but it was still too late. The ice tentacles stretched out crazily, like thousands of wild snakes, towards Nie Tian. In the blink of an eye, Nie Tian felt a bone-chilling coldness assaulting him. The space around him was instantly frozen, and even his meridians were frozen. Roar! At this critical moment, Jin let out a furious roar. Immediately after, terrifying golden flames surged out from his body, turning his entire body into a sea of flames that tore apart the frozen space. Nie Tian suddenly felt a warm current flowing through his body, and all the meridians in his body instantly recovered. He didn't think too much and stomped on the ground, exhausting the last strand of astral energy in his body to condense a pair of astral soul wings. With a flap of his wings, he retreated several thousand meters away. Little bastard, die! Ice Frost should have been able to kill Nie Tian, but Jin Tu had ruined it. She was furious, and with a roar she slapped out with her palm. A 1,000-meter-long icicle appeared and pressed down on Jin Tuesday. Upon seeing this from afar, Nie Tian couldn't help but exclaim, Jin Tu! Just at this moment a strange scene occurred. Jin An's figure was like a ball of flame, gradually becoming clearer. A pair of golden wings appeared on his back, suddenly unfurling. They were actually around 10 meters long. The wings on Jin An's back flapped, and he dodged to the side, dodging the icicle. This! Nie Tian sucked in a breath of cold air, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. He was speechless. He still didn't know when Jin Tu had grown his wings. This little thing, he really hid it well. Fat Cat chuckled, she was also very surprised. Damn it! Ice Frost's attack missed, and with a roar, he stared at Nie Tian with murderous intent, as if he wanted to skin Nie Tian alive. But at this moment, two silhouettes appeared behind Nie Tian. They were Gue Wuchan and Tang 13. Nie Tian, are you alright? Tang 13 looked at Nie Tian and asked anxiously. I'm fine. Nie Tian squeezed out a smile and said indifferently. At this moment, Nie Tian's face was frighteningly pale, but his breathing was very stable, and there was no danger to his life. He had just used up too much energy, and as long as he had enough time to recover, he would be fine. Nie Tian, rest for a while. Leave this crazy woman to us. Gue Wuchan smiled faintly, his eyes locked onto Ice Frost. Okay. Nie Tian nodded heavily and then Jin An moved. He stepped on Jin An's back, and they left the ghost martial space. Killing the ice demon silkworm was already Nie Tian's limit. The remaining ice frost would be dealt with by Tang 13 and Gue Wuchan. Nie Tian. Seeing Nie Tian walk over, Rui Qinyu cried out in surprise. She only relaxed after she confirmed that Nie Tian's life was not in danger. Nie Tian nodded slightly, and then let Jean and return to the soul pet ring. He then focused his attention on the ghost martial space. Ice Frost was a peak over god, and her strength was not bad. But if Tang 13 and Gue Wuchan work together, it should be more than enough to deal with her. You all deserve to die. With the demonic ice silkworm killed and the ice demon's heart snatched away, Bing Shuanghan was on the verge of going berserk. With a crazed roar, he launched a frenzied attack towards Gue Wuchan and Tang 13. Countless ice blades howled through the air, covering the sky and covering the earth as they pressed forward. Gue Wuchan waved the Octotera Ghost Martial in his hand, and countless sword shadows appeared, blocking the ice blades in the air. Ghost Eye, 1,000 Tribulations Kill. At this moment, Tang 13's ghost eyes flickered, and a black light shot out. It was extremely fast, and there was no time to react. Bang! With a muffled sound, Ice Frost's figure shook, and then she was sent flying. A trail of blood appeared in the air. You! Ice Frost steadied herself in the air, but there was a horrifying wound on her shoulder, and blood kept gushing out. After losing the protection of the ice demon silkworm, her combat strength dropped a lot, and the ice demon silkworm's silk in her body was decreasing. On the other hand, Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 were getting more and more courageous, and a terrifying battle intent surged around them. Leave! Ice Frost's beautiful eyes flashed. She moved and retreated a few hundred meters away. Bing Ju was dead, the ice demon silkworm was dead, and the ice demon's heart was stolen. Ice Frost was furious, but she still maintained her rationality. She knew that she was no match for Gue Wuchan and Tang 13, so she had to leave first. I will take revenge. Ice Frost's eyes were filled with Ice Frost's cold eyes. After saying that, she didn't stay any longer and leaped away. Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 didn't chase after her, and let her leave. They had already won this battle, and there was no need to kill her. Swoosh! However, at this moment the void suddenly shook. Then, an extremely fast silhouette appeared, leaving several afterimages in the air. A deadly sword intent fell and landed on Ice Frost's body. Ice Frost didn't have time to react. Her body shook, and then she exploded into a pool of blood, dripping with blood. Gue Wuchan and the others saw this scene, and their faces changed. Their expressions started to tremble. That sword was really fast. Gue Wuchan thought that even if he was in the ghost martial space, he wouldn't be able to use such a fast sword. Nie Tian saw the afterimage in the air from afar, and his eyes narrowed. 4 words appeared in his mind: 1,000 Cloud Barrier. He couldn't be more familiar with the afterimage in the air. It was the image that was formed when one's speed reached its peak. And Nie Tian had only seen one person who could reach such a speed, and that was Luo Xian after activating the 1,000 Cloud Barrier. Chapter 1747. It really is Luo Xian. Nie Tian looked at the purple-clothed figure in the distance. The corner of his mouth twitched and his eyes trembled. He had not expected Luo Xian to appear at this moment. He remembered that Luo Xian and Lai Yin Jiufeng were together. Since the former had appeared, the latter was probably here as well. Nie Tian, we meet again. The next moment, a scarlet figure appeared with a strange smile. He stared at Nie Tian playfully. It was Lai Yin Jiufeng. Lai Yin Jiufeng, you really are a lingering ghost, Nie Tian gasped inwardly. He then calmed down and responded with a faint smile. Nie Tian, shouldn't you be thanking me for helping you kill someone you couldn't kill? Lai Yin Jiufeng smiled again. Then, he moved and walked straight towards Nie Tian. Gue Wuchan and Tang 13 tensed up. They gathered their auras and prepared to attack. Don't worry, Nie Tian and I are old friends. I won't hurt him. Lien Jiufeng turned to look at Gui Wuxian and Tang 13. He smiled and added, "At least not now." "It's fine." Nie Tian waved his hand and gestured for Gui Wuxian and Tang 13 to calm down. Lien Jiufeng had always been a threat. If Nie Tian was at his peak, he might stand a chance against Lien Jiufeng. However, he had used up most of his energy. He was at the end of his rope and could not fight Lien Jiufeng. Moreover, Lien Jiufeng had Luo Zian with him. The latter was also a difficult person to deal with. Luo Zian's strength had reached the early stage of high god. The strangest thing was that she did not seem to be suppressed by the martial arts restrictions. Nie Tian guessed that Lien Jiufeng must have done something to her that allowed her to ignore the martial arts restrictions. Luo Zian's appearance and instant killing of Frost was enough to prove that she had grown much stronger. The people behind Nie Tian were very nervous, especially Rui Qianyu. Her eyes were flickering, and she was ready to use her 9-colored pupils. Nie Tian, tell the people around you to put away their hostility. I'm not your enemy. Lien Jiufeng smiled faintly and stopped about 100 meters away from Nie Tian. Then, he added, "At least not right now. I'm fine." Nie Tian smiled faintly and told Rui Qianyu not to worry. Then, he stared at Lien Jiufeng and said seriously, "What do you want, Lien Jiufeng? Just say it." Not only was Lien Jiufeng powerful, he was also cunning and insidious. He was a troublesome character to deal with. The Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants. Lien Jiufeng smiled faintly as a strange smile appeared on his lips. Nie Tian's eyes focused when he heard these 4 words. He didn't think that Lien Jiufeng would be interested in the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants. Continue. Nie Tian didn't have the time to play riddles with Lien Jiufeng and said seriously, "I want to enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants. Are you interested?" Lien Jiufeng smiled faintly and looked at Nie Tian with a playful gaze. Nie Tian was surprised, but then he smiled and said, "You want to work with me? You can say that." Lien Jiufeng smiled faintly and said, "I think you are interested in the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants as well." As he spoke, Lien Jiufeng suddenly looked at Tang 13 and the corner of his mouth twitched. He said, "Your ghost eye has merged with the evil energy of the 9 Infants. You must have sensed something." Tang 13 was stunned. She didn't think that Lien Jiufeng would know so much. Nie Tian frowned. It seemed that Lien Jiufeng had noticed the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants a long time ago and knew as much as he did. Nie Tian and the others were going to enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants to stop the demon cocoon from awakening. At the same time, they would obtain the evil energy of the 9 Infants and help Rui Qianyu completely overcome the power of the Blood Devourer. This trip was very dangerous. If Lien Jiufeng was willing to go with them, it might not be a bad thing. However, Nie Tian didn't know what Lien Jiufeng's goal in entering the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants was. If Lien Jiufeng wanted to awaken the demon cocoon, then it would be terrible. "Lien Jiufeng, why do you want to enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants?" Nie Tian thought and asked directly. "The evil energy of the 9 Infants is good stuff. Who doesn't want that kind of power?" Lien Jiufeng smiled faintly with a playful expression. Nie Tian frowned. He couldn't figure out how much of Lien Jiufeng's words were true and how much was false. However, it was impossible for him to not allow Lien Jiufeng to enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants in this situation. "All right, we can enter the Forbidden Land of the 9 Infants together," Nie Tian said with a nod after thinking for a moment. "Very good." Lien Jiufeng smiled faintly. Then, his body moved and he suddenly approached Nie Tian. In an instant, a strange energy surged out of his body and enveloped Nie Tian. Nie Tian. Everyone's eyes trembled when they saw this. They cried out in surprise. They didn't expect Lien Jiufeng to suddenly attack. Nie Tian reacted extremely quickly. He didn't panic. Instead, he smiled faintly and reached out his hand to absorb the energy. "Thanks." Nie Tian's body trembled slightly. His complexion actually improved a lot, and he instantly recovered most of his condition. He looked up at Lai Yin Jiufeng and said indifferently. The others were stunned once more. They didn't expect Lai Yin Jiufeng to save Nie Tian. They had to admit that Lai Yin Jiufeng's methods were terrifying. He actually managed to recover most of Nie Tian's condition in an instant. Nie Tian had used up a lot of energy and blood energy. Under normal circumstances, he would need several days to recover even with the chaotic origin coffin. It was strange that Lai Yin Jiufeng's power had allowed him to recover most of his strength. There's no need to thank me. We're friends, Lai Yin Jiufeng smiled faintly. He actually looked harmless. That fellow actually succeeded in fusing with the earth vein source. Just then, little Fat Cat's voice rang out, its expression one of shock as it let out a strange cry. Nie Tian frowned slightly. He couldn't help but sweep his consciousness over Lai Yin Jiufeng's body. As expected, he sensed a powerful aura of the earth vein source. Back at the Nine Dragons' earth vein, Nie Tian, Lai Yin Jiufeng, and Luo Zian had divided the earth vein source among themselves. However, Nie Tian had obtained half of it, while Lai Yin Jiufeng and Luo Zian had each obtained half of it. Nie Tian was still trying to find a way to fuse with the earth vein source, but Lai Yin Jiufeng had already succeeded. Actually, this was nothing strange. Lai Yin Jiufeng had less earth vein source than Nie Tian in the first place, so it was easier for him to fuse with it. Coupled with the support of an organization like the Net Above and Earth, he could obtain anything he wanted. Nie Tian noticed that Lai Yin Jiufeng's strength had already risen to early overgod. He was an entire cultivation realm higher than him. However, if Nie Tian used the 3 forbidden techniques, his strength would reach early overgod as well. I've only just fused with the earth vein source, so I helped Luo Zian fuse with it as well. Lai Yin Jiufeng smiled faintly when he saw Nie Tian's surprise. Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He then looked at Luo Zian. He had never thought that she would successfully fuse with the earth vein source as well. Chapter 1748. Nie Tian couldn't help but smile bitterly when he saw Luo Zian. He had to admit that Luo Zian's luck was pretty good. She actually managed to fuse with the earth vein source. Nie Tian was very surprised. Fat Cat had once said that the earth vein source was the power of origin. Ordinary godheads couldn't fuse with origin power. He didn't know what method Lai Yin Jiufeng and Luo Zian had used to fuse with the earth vein source. If Lai Yin Jiufeng's godhead was extraordinary, Nie Tian would believe it. But it didn't make sense that Luo Zian's godhead was extraordinary as well. Lai Yin Jiufeng is the Emperor of the Netherworld's avatar. Who knows how many tricks he has up his sleeve? Maybe he used some evil art to forcefully fuse with the earth vein source, Nie Tian thought to himself. Fat Cat was also shocked. He couldn't understand how Lai Yin Jiufeng and Luo Zian managed to fuse with the earth vein source. Nie Tian, we're done here. Let's go, Lai Yin Jiufeng said to Nie Tian with a smile. He didn't explain anything. Nie Tian looked around. The demonic ice silkworm's corpse had disappeared without him noticing. There was nothing left to linger over here. Nie Tian nodded to everyone and left immediately. Lai Yin Jiufeng, where are the others? Nie Tian noticed that Luo Zian was the only one beside Lai Yin Jiufeng. He couldn't help but ask, "Do you think I would bring useless people with me?" Lai Yin Jiufeng sneered and said coldly. Nie Tian frowned, but he didn't say anything. A while later, they arrived outside the 9 venomous beast forbidden land. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen had arrived long ago, and were already waiting for Nie Tian and the others. They called out in low voices, "Nie Tian! Lord Elder!" Nie Tian's figure flickered and appeared next to Gao Yuhan. "It's you!" Duan Tianhen could not help but growl when he saw Lai Yin Jiufeng standing behind Nie Tian. His eyes flashed with killing intent. "Duan Tianhen, don't be rash. He also wants to enter the forbidden ground of the 9 neonate." Nie Tian quickly stepped forward and signaled for Duan Tianhen to calm down. Gao Yuhan shot Duan Tianhen a glance before looking at Lai Yin Jiufeng. After a moment of thought, she said, "That's fine too. One more person means one more power." Since Nie Tian wanted Lai Yin Jiufeng to enter the forbidden land of 9 infants together, there must be a reason. Gao Yuhan reluctantly accepted it. At this moment, there were a total of 10 people who had entered the forbidden ground of 9-headed infants. Nie Tian, Rui Qianyu, Tang 13, Tang Yuyu, Gui Wuchan, Lan Yiru, Lai Yin Jiufeng, Luo Zian, Duan Tianhen, and Gao Yuhan. The 10-man team was ready to enter the forbidden land of 9 infants at any time. "Elder, do we enter now?" Nie Tian looked at Gao Yuhan and asked in a deep voice. As he spoke, Nie Tian used his consciousness to scan the area. He did not find anything out of the ordinary. The forbidden land of 9 infants was still as dead and quiet as before. "Something's not right." Gao Yuhan shook her head slightly. Her expression was strange. Nie Tian was stunned. He did not know what had happened. Gao Yuhan frowned and said, "I did not sense the existence of the Forbidden Ground Protector. I had Tianhen test it just now, but the Forbidden Ground Protector did not appear. It's very strange." Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. The disappearance of the Forbidden Ground Protector was out of his expectations. According to Gao Yuhan, the Forbidden Ground Protector was always guarding outside the Forbidden Land. It was impossible for them to leave. "Aunt, let me try again," Duan Tianhen could not help but say, but he was stopped by Gao Yuhan. At this moment, Gao Yuhan could not help but look at Lai Yin Jiufeng. Her gaze flickered slightly, but she did not say anything. "All right, I understand." Lai Yin Jiufeng smiled faintly and said, "If you can't bear to leave your nephew, then let me be the bait." As he spoke, Lai Yin Jiufeng's figure moved. He took a step forward and walked straight towards the forbidden land of 9 infants. Everyone else was stunned. They did not think that he would just rush over like that. But Nie Tian was not worried at all. He knew Lai Yin Jiufeng's character very well. He was not a reckless fool. He would not do something he was not confident in. Lai Yin Jiufeng's figure was very fast. He arrived at a place only a few thousand meters away from the forbidden land of 9 infants. However, there was only dead silence outside the forbidden land. There was no movement at all. Seeing this, Nie Tian's expression changed. He was very strange. Were the Forbidden Ground Protectors really not here? The forbidden land of 9 infants guards would appear when someone appeared within 10,000 meters of the forbidden land. However, Lai Yin Jiufeng had clearly crossed the warning line, but the Forbidden Land Protectors did not appear. There must be something strange about this. Lai Yin Jiufeng continued to walk forward, but his speed had slowed. When he was about 1,000 meters away from the Forbidden Land, there was still nothing out of the ordinary. However, his figure suddenly stopped at this moment. He seemed to have discovered something. Gao Yuhan, Nie Tian, and the others watched from afar with puzzled expressions. At this time, they had confirmed that the Forbidden Land Protectors were indeed not here. Otherwise, they would have appeared long ago. When everyone saw that Lai Yin Jiufeng had stopped, they followed suit. When Nie Tian and the others arrived beside Lai Yin Jiufeng, they finally discovered something strange. There were many black withered trees on the ground. They looked sinister and looked like sharp claws. The strangest thing was that these black withered tree claws seemed to be growing out of the ground. They gave off a bone-chilling feeling. "What is this?" Duan Tianhen was stunned and asked in surprise. No one answered him because they did not know either. Nie Tian frowned. He took a step forward and grabbed a piece of black wood. With a sudden tug, the ground around him was directly lifted up. The black wood seemed to be endless as it was pulled out of the ground. Bang! Then, there was a muffled sound. The black wood seemed to be broken underground. Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He looked at the black wood in his hand. It was dozens of meters long. The place where it was broken was also black. Seeing this, the others followed suit and pulled at the black wood. However, it was broken every time. This black wood seems to be growing out of the ground. So strange, Nye Tian murmured with a puzzled expression. Tang 13 used the eye of ghost eye to feel. She found a weak existence of the evil energy of the 9 infants in the black wood. Other than that, she found nothing out of the ordinary. Since the black wood was in the 9 infants' mountain range, it was normal for the evil energy of the 9 infants to exist. Why do we care so much? Since the Forbidden Land protectors are gone, let's enter the Forbidden Land. Duan Tianhen was very impulsive and said arrogantly. Then, he stepped forward and walked towards the Forbidden Land of 9 infants. Tianhen. Seeing this, Gao Yuhan shouted. But Duan Tianhen had already walked past. Everyone stilled and hurried to follow. Walking slowly, everyone was very cautious. Slowly, they stepped into the Forbidden Land of 9 infants. The moment they stepped into the Forbidden Land, everyone felt that the evil energy of the 9 infants in the air became much stronger. This is strange. Where did the Forbidden Land protectors go? Nye Tian entered the Forbidden Land. However, his eyebrows were tightly furrowed. Entering the Forbidden Land so easily made him feel a little uneasy. Bang! Just at this moment, there was a sound of something breaking through the ground. Then, a black, withered wood claw actually drilled out of the ground and grew wildly. What's going on? Everyone was stunned. Looking at the black withered wood on the ground, their faces were full of surprise. Bang! 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 Then, more black withered wood broke through the ground and grew wildly towards the sky. It was like a black, ghostly claw. It was incomparably ferocious. This! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and couldn't react for a moment. Chapter 1749. Swoosh! 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 In the forbidden area, countless black withered trees danced like thousands of snakes, grabbing at the group. Be careful! Nye Tian was the first to react. He shouted, and then the sword aura around him soared into the sky. Countless sword shadows shot out, sweeping at the black withered trees. The others reacted and immediately took action, attacking the black withered tree in a frenzy. Crackle! Countless withered trees were smashed in the air, but in the next moment they grew out again, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at the group. Nye Tian furrowed his brows. He struck out with his sword, and the mighty sword shadows broke through the endless black withered trees. These black withered trees were too strange. Although their attack power wasn't strong, they were very difficult to deal with. Their vitality was very terrifying. As soon as they were smashed, new ones grew out. At this time, Nye Tian suddenly raised his head and saw that the surrounding area was occupied by black withered trees. The trees that were originally there had been uprooted, as if they had been devoured by the black withered trees. Nye Tian sensed the aura around him, and immediately sensed that there was some kind of strange rune power hidden in the air. What's going on? The group was stunned as they dealt with the black withered trees that kept surging towards them. These black withered trees were like a colony of ants, black and dense, constantly rushing towards them. Let's charge out! Nye Tian felt that the black withered trees around him were increasing, and he couldn't help but roar. He took a step forward, and stabbed out with his starlight heaven slash, forcibly creating a path. Right now, their situation wasn't optimistic. If they were trapped by the black withered trees, it would be terrible. Nye Tian walked at the front, but just as he took a step forward, the path in front of him was blocked by the black withered trees. I want to see what the hell these black withered trees are! Duan Tianhen roared and then punched the ground. He felt that since the black withered trees had drilled out of the ground, their roots must be underground. As long as he destroyed the roots, the black withered trees would naturally disappear. Boom! Duan Tianhen's fist landed, and the ground shook. The ground within tens of meters cracked, and a huge pit that was tens of meters deep appeared. Everyone looked at the deep pit, and sure enough, they saw black withered wood continuously drilling out of the ground. However, the roots of the black withered wood seemed to be very deep. It was estimated to be at least a few hundred or even 1,000 meters underground. It was impossible to rely on brute force to dig 1,000 meters into the ground. Nye Tian, there's a high possibility that these black withered trees have something to do with the runes in the space. Try and see if you can destroy those runes. At this moment, the fat cat's voice rang out, reminding Nye Tian. All right. Nye Tian nodded solemnly. He had just noticed that there were runes surging in the space. Immediately after, he activated the holographic divine sigil and carefully sensed the rune power in the space. Only now did he discover that these symbols were extremely strange. They continuously emitted a sinister aura that enveloped the black withered tree. It really is strange. These black withered trees are being controlled by these black symbols. Nye Tian frowned and a smile appeared on his face. His palm moved slightly, and a wave of sword will surged out and bombarded the black symbols in the air. However, the strange thing was that these black symbols seemed to completely ignore Nye Tian's attack. They were not affected at all. Strange! Nye Tian was stunned. His sword will was very strong, but it had no effect on the symbols. He tried again, and the result was the same. Nye Tian, these symbols are formed by the evil energy of Jiuying. Ordinary attacks have no effect on them. The fat cat frowned slightly, and then looked at Duan Tianhen, who was beside Nye Tian. This guy has the fifth seal in his body. Let him try using the fifth seal. Alright. Nye Tian nodded solemnly, and then explained to Duan Tianhen. The latter was shocked, because he had not sensed any runes surging in the space. Nye Tian did not explain. With a thought, the holographic divinity glyph surged, releasing a faint light. Under the effect of the holographic divinity glyph, the black symbols gradually became clearer. Everyone was stunned, and then they realized that there were terrifying symbols hidden in the space around them. What a terrifying aura of Jiuying! Tang 13's ghost eye flashed, and she could not help but exclaim. The aura of these black symbols was very terrifying. When Tang 13's ghost eye opened, she actually felt it, and could not control it. Duan Tianhen, use your ultimate wind and thunder seal to attack these symbols. Nye Tian looked at Duan Tianhen and said solemnly. Duan Tianhen nodded heavily and then his body shook. A terrifying ultimate wind and thunder seal was released from his body, and like a raging wave, it bombarded the black symbols. Boom! 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 Countless explosions sounded in the air. The black symbols could not withstand the attack of the ultimate wind and thunder seal, and they all crumbled and dissipated in the air. At this moment, the black withered trees that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws suddenly stopped, as if time had suddenly stopped. These black withered trees are indeed controlled by the black symbols. Seeing this, Nye Tian could not help but smile. Immediately, he controlled the holographic divinity glyph to spread outwards, while Duan Tianhen continued to attack with the ultimate wind and thunder seal. The black symbols in the air rapidly crumbled. The black withered trees in the air also fell to the ground, shrinking back into the ground. As the black symbols crumbled, the black withered trees retreated like the tide. The ultimate wind and thunder seal lived up to its name as the fifth seal. It was very effective against the black symbols. Each of the 10 strongest seals had its own unique characteristic. Just like Jean de Bao's 3,000 demon seals, it was very destructive against spirit bodies. It was not surprising that the ultimate wind and thunder seal was effective against the symbols of Jiuying. What is that? At this moment, Lan Yiru seemed to have discovered something and screamed. Her voice was a little shrill. Everyone was stunned and looked over. They saw that in the air 1,000 meters above their heads, there was a terrifying black vortex floating in the air. It was surging wildly, releasing an evil and murderous aura. Everyone looked at the black vortex and gasped at the same time. What a powerful evil energy of Jiuying! Nye Tian became cold for a moment. He could feel the extremely powerful evil energy of Jiuying from the black vortex. His eyes could not help but tremble, and he exclaimed in his heart. Gao Yuhan also seemed to sense something. Her eyes flickered, and she was actually a little frightened. The black vortex spun rapidly in the air, and then its shape changed slightly. It became a little slender, but it looked even darker. At this moment, Gui Wuchan's eyes flickered, and his expression froze. He said in shock, "This looks like an eye." Hearing his words, everyone was stunned at the same time. Then, their eyes changed, and their expressions became sluggish. Gui Wuchan was right. That black vortex indeed looked like an evil eye that emitted a strange aura. Being stared at by this evil eye, everyone felt as though their souls were being pierced. Chapter 1750. Boom. Duan Tianhen was extremely aggressive. The stamp of wind and thunder headed straight for the evil eye. Everyone froze. Nobody thought that Duan Tianhen would suddenly make a move. Everyone's nerves were taut as they stared at the black light in the sky. Right at this moment, the evil eye suddenly moved, and it actually let out a miserable howl. The howl was cold, sharp, and extremely ear-piercing as it resounded through the sky. In the next moment, the evil eye shook slightly and disappeared into thin air. Everyone froze. Staring at the empty sky, their faces were full of shock. Nie Tian's expression was extremely strange. His brows were furrowed and his face was filled with fear. He was very familiar with the miserable howl that the evil eye let out just now, because he had heard it once before. The first time he and Tang 13 tried to enter the forbidden ground of the 9 infants, Tang 13 sensed the forbidden ground of the 9 infants. Then, she accidentally encountered the demonic cocoon of the 9 infants, and the eye of the ghost absorbed some of the evil energy of the 9 infants. At that time, Nie Tian heard the same scream. Hearing it again, how could he not be shocked? Forcing himself to calm down, Nie Tian slowly turned around and prepared to ask Tang 13. However, the moment he turned around, something strange happened. Nie Tian saw Tang 13's eyes change. They turned into 2 bottomless abysses that emitted terrifying powers. Watch out! In the next moment, Nie Tian seemed to have sensed something. With a low growl, he summoned his sword energy and charged towards Tang 13. At the same time, Tang 13's eyes flashed. Instantly, a terrifying power shot out. A black bone claw appeared and pounced towards Duan Tianhen. Boom! In midair, the shadow of the sword clashed with the black bone claw. The shadow of the sword crumbled. Bang! Then, after a muffled sound, Duan Tianhen's body was flung backwards. He landed on the ground, leaving a trail of blood that was tens of meters long. The sudden turn of events stunned everyone. They stared at Tang 13 in bewilderment, not knowing what was happening. Bastard, what are you doing? Duan Tianhen suddenly stood up. His entire body was drenched in blood. Although his injuries were severe, he had managed to preserve his life. The scene just now had been very dangerous. If Nie Tian had acted a second later, Duan Tianhen would have died on the spot. Although Nie Tian's sword didn't block Tang 13's attack, it greatly weakened the attack and saved Duan Tianhen's life. Tang 13's attack was so sudden that no one could react in time. Everyone froze for a second before they realized what was going on. They stared at Tang 13 in fear. 13! Tang Yuyu exclaimed. He took a step forward and ran over. Tang 13 abruptly turned around. Her eyes flashed again, and a terrifying wave of eye energy shot out. It transformed into a sharp blade that headed towards Tang Yuyu. Don't go near him! Upon seeing this, Nie Tian let out a low roar as a pair of astral soul wings appeared on his back, directly blocking in front of Tang Yuyu. Pooh! The blade of eye energy landed on Nie Tian's shoulder, directly piercing through it. His silhouette trembled as he fell to the ground. He retreated a few steps before regaining his balance. Luckily, Nie Tian appeared in time. Otherwise, if this attack landed on Tang Yuyu's back, even if Tang Yuyu didn't die, he would have been severely injured. Tang Yuyu's martial body was far from being as strong as Nie Tian's. 13 you. Tang Yuyu froze. His face was blank as he asked, "What's wrong with you?" "Retreat." Nie Tian waved his hand. A gust of wind swept past, forcing Tang Yuyu to retreat more than 10 meters away. Only then did the others react. They stared at Tang 13, their eyes trembling. They had no idea what was going on. "Nie Tian, what's wrong with Tang 13? Rui Qinyu took a step forward and asked Nie Tian. "He's being controlled by the Jiuying demon cocoon." Before Nie Tian could answer, Gao Yuhan stepped forward and said in a low voice. Just now, she was completely focused on the evil eye and didn't notice Tang 13's abnormality. If it weren't for Nie Tian's timely intervention, Duan Tianhen would have lost his life. Tang 13's eyes were as deep as the abyss. Blood seeped out of her eyes as she stared deadly at Duan Tianhen. "He wants to kill me?" Duan Tianhen was badly injured. He hid behind Gao Yuhan and was shocked. He didn't have any grudges with Tang 13. Why did the latter hate him so much? "He's not the one who wants to kill you. The Jiuying demon cocoon wants to kill you," Nie Tian said in a low voice. He originally thought that after Tang 13 absorbed the evil energy of the Jiuying demon eye and mutated, she would be fine. He didn't expect that the evil energy of the Jiuying demon cocoon could control Tang 13 through the evil energy of the Jiuying demon eye. Die. Just then, Tang 13 growled. Her body moved and she dashed towards Duan Tianhen. "You are seeking death." Almost at the same time, a low growl came from the sky. Then, a silhouette dashed towards Tang 13, leaving behind multiple shadows in the air. "Don't hurt him." Nie Tian's eyes widened. Seeing that the person who attacked was Luo Zian, he couldn't help but scream. He slashed out with his sword and the shadow of his sword howled like a dragon. The two swords clashed in the air. After a muffled sound, Luo Zian's silhouette flew backwards. She stabilized herself in the air. Blood dripped from the corner of her mouth as she stared at Nie Tian. "He's my friend. I won't let anyone hurt him." Nie Tianling glared at Luo Zian and said in a low voice. Even though Tang 13 was being controlled by the Jiuying demon cocoon, Nie Tian wouldn't let anyone hurt him. Just then, Tang 13's eyes once again emitted a terrifying amount of spiritual energy. A black ray of light shot out of her and headed towards Duan Tianhen. Gao Yuhan's eyes froze. Her eyes flashed and a terrifying amount of spiritual energy poured out of her. A cyan swirl appeared. Like a spring, it swallowed the black ray of light in the air and enveloped Tang 13. Though Tang 13's ghostly eyes were strong, compared to the 8 pupils of the 9 colored pupils, it was a little weak. Tang 13 was engulfed by the cyan spiritual energy and immediately felt an endless amount of pressure. He couldn't help but scream in agony. Then, he fainted and fell to the ground. Tang 13. Seeing this, Tang Yuyu rushed over, tears were rolling down his cheek. Nie Tian landed on the ground. After confirming that Tang 13's aura was still there, he let out a sigh of relief. "He's fine for now." Gao Yuhan's eyes froze and she spoke softly. She showed mercy and didn't kill Tang 13. "Many thanks, Elder." Nie Tian expressed his gratitude and let out a long sigh of relief. "Auntie, is this guy crazy? Why does he want to kill me?" Duan Tianhen walked over and looked at Tang 13 in confusion. "He doesn't want to kill you. He's being controlled by that evil eye." Gao Yuhan frowned and said in a low voice. "It's that evil eye that wants to kill me? Why?" Duan Tianhen froze and asked in confusion. "Because it feels threatened by you." Nie Tian and Gao Yuhan exchanged glances and said at the same time. The Jiuying demon cocoon wanted to kill Duan Tianhen because it was afraid of him. Chapter 1751. The demon cocoon was afraid of the wind, thunder seal. After confirming this, Nie Tian couldn't help but frown. It seemed that Gao Yuhan saving Duan Tianhen had its uses. You mean to say that the evil eye is afraid of the fifth seal? Duan Tianhen was not stupid. He immediately understood and was shocked. He did not think that his fifth seal would be so strong. Yes. Gao Yuhan and Nie Tian nodded. Though they did not know why the demon cocoon was afraid of the fifth seal, they were certain of this. Auntie, what do we do now? Duan Tianhen chuckled. He was much more confident now. Let's wait for him to wake up. Gao Yuhan was very calm. She looked at the unconscious Tang 13 and said softly. The way the others looked at Tang 13 had changed. Tang 13 was controlled by the demon cocoon and was an unstable factor. Nobody knew what he would be like after he wakes up. Nie Tian looked at Tang 13 with confusion and nervousness. He was not sure if Tang 13 would be able to stay conscious after he wakes up. Everyone focused their attention on Tang 13 and waited for him to wake up. After a while, Tang 13's eyes opened slightly. Everyone was nervous and subconsciously took a few steps back. Tang 13 opened his eyes and slowly stood up. Seeing everyone staring at him, he asked, "What happened to me?" Nie Tian saw that Tang 13's eyes were normal and that his breathing was stable. He sighed in relief. "You bastard, you almost killed me!" Duan Tianhen growled angrily. Tang 13 froze. After a long time, he said, "I only remember that after the evil eye appeared, I lost control of my eyes. I don't know what happened after that." "Yes." Nie Tian nodded. He scanned Tang 13 with his consciousness again and asked, "Tang 13, how do you feel now?" "Nothing. Same as usual." Tang 13 frowned. "I just feel that the eye of the ghost eye has gotten stronger." Gao Yuhan took a step forward and said solemnly, "When you were controlled by the evil eye just now, the ghost eye absorbed some of the evil energy of Jiu Ying. It's normal for it to become stronger." Nie Tian was taken aback. He could not help but look at Gao Yuhan and said, "Elder, what you mean is that as long as the ghost eye absorbs the evil energy of Jiu Ying, it will continue to grow stronger?" "Yes, in theory." Gao Yuhan nodded and said, "However, the eye of ghost eye has its own limit. If you exceed this limit, you will be devoured by the evil energy of Jiu Ying." "I see." Nie Tian silently nodded. Remembering something, he turned to Tang 13 and asked, "That evil eye, what did you feel?" "The nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon." Tang 13's expression changed. She said in a low voice, "That evil eye is the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon." As expected, Nie Tian's heart sank and his expression changed. He just felt that the evil eye had a very scary aura of Jiu Ying. Plus, the fact that the evil eye could control Tang 13 proved that the evil eye was the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon. Nie Tian, the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon is about to awaken. Tang 13's expression changed again. She said in a low voice, "I can feel it. The evil energy of Jiu Ying is getting more and more violent." Everyone's faces froze. They could not hide the fear in their eyes. Though no one knew what the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon was, the energy that the evil eye gave off was very strong and chilling. "Tang 13, can you find where the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon is hiding?" Nie Tian became cold and asked in a low voice. "Yes." Tang 13 nodded heavily. Using the connection between the eye of the ghost eye and the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon, he believed he could find where the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon was hiding. "Okay. We will go now, find the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon, and destroy it." Nie Tian's eyes became determined and cold. "Nie Tian, wait." At this time, Gao Yuhan suddenly came next to Nie Tian and spoke. She was looking at Tang 13. The eye of the ghost eye was once controlled by the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon. Can his words still be trusted? Lian Jiufeng also walked over and stared at Tang 13. He said in a low voice, "Even now, I am not sure if he is normal." Nie Tian's eyes focused and he finally reacted. He trusted Tang 13, but Gao Yuhan, Lian Jiufeng, and the others were different. They had no reason to believe Tang 13's words. One had to say, though Tang 13 looked normal on the surface, it was possible that he was faking it. Maybe he was still controlled by the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon and wanted to lead everyone into a trap. Though this was all hypothetical, it was possible. Elder, do you also suspect that Tang 13 is not normal? Nie Tian looked at Gao Yuhan and asked with a frown. Gao Yuhan's 9-color pupil was already at the 8th pupil. She should be able to see if Tang 13 was still controlled by the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon. He is normal right now, but the closer we get to the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon, the more it affects him. So, he can lose control at any time, Gao Yuhan said in a low voice. She seemed to be thinking about something. Nie Tian couldn't help but fall silent. Gao Yuhan was right. The closer they got to the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon, the stronger the evil energy of the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon. Then, Tang 13 would be affected more and more likely to lose control. I can control myself. At this time, Tang 13 suddenly took a step forward and said with determination. Really? Lian Jiufeng sneered and then pointed at Tang Yu. He said, Tang 13, you almost killed her just now. If it weren't for Nie Tian, this lady would be a corpse already. Tang 13 looked at Tang Yu. His eyes froze and he was speechless. He originally thought that he only attacked Duan Tianhen. He didn't think that he would almost kill Tang Yu. If he wanted to kill Tang Yu, then it meant that he had completely lost control. Tang 13's eyes flashed. She seemed to be in a daze. It was as if she had lost all faith. Tang 13, I'm fine. Seeing this, Tang Yu immediately walked over and said hurriedly, the person just now wasn't you. Don't come near me. Tang 13 suddenly waved her hand and signaled for Tang Yu to retreat. He had completely lost confidence in himself. Lian Jiufeng sneered and said, how can you control yourself with this kind of faith? Nie Tian looked at Lian Jiufeng. His eyes flashed, and he suppressed the anger in his heart. Lian Jiufeng was too evil. He clearly saw the relationship between Tang 13 and Tang Yu, so he purposely used Tang Yu to agitate him. Tang 13 was a person with a firm heart, but Tang Yu was his weakness. Lian Jiufeng took advantage of this and used it. Lian Jiufeng, what do you want? Nie Tian took a step forward and asked seriously. Chapter 1752. As Lian Jiufeng spoke, his cold gaze moved around Tang 13's body. He clearly harbored evil intentions. Lian Jiufeng, what do you mean? Nie Tian frowned and asked in a cold tone. My meaning is very clear. I do not trust him, I only trust myself. Lian Jiufeng did not back down and said solemnly, let me leave a seal in his eyes to help him stay awake. That's impossible. Nie Tian growled and rejected Lian Jiufeng's offer right after he finished speaking. Lian Jiufeng was vicious, and extremely cunning. On the surface, he wanted to help Tang 13 stay awake, but who knew what the seal would do? It could take Tang 13's life at any time. Nie Tian, do not refuse so quickly. Think carefully before you make a decision. Lian Jiufeng smiled cold. His eyes moved and inadvertently swept across Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen. This group of 10 could be divided into 3 sides. Gao Yuhan and Duan Tianhen on one side, Lian Jiufeng and Luo Zian on the other, and Nie Tian and the others on the other side. Although Nie Tian's side had 6 people, the most people, in terms of absolute strength, Gao Yuhan's side was undoubtedly the strongest. Even Lian Jiufeng could not fight against Gao Yuhan. Lian Jiufeng looked at Gao Yuhan. He clearly wanted her support. I said no, so no. Nie Tian did not back down. He stared at Lian Jiufeng and said cold, Lian Jiufeng, I will not let you leave a seal on Tang 13. Lian Jiufeng was too dangerous, and his identity was strange. He had an unclear relationship with the mysterious emperor of the Netherworld. Who knew what kind of seal he would leave on Tang 13? As soon as Nie Tian finished speaking, the atmosphere in the hall became tense. Lai Yin Jufeng frowned, and his eyes suddenly darkened. He said cold, Nie Tian, do not force me to do something I do not want to do. What do you want to do? Nie Tianling responded coldly and forcefully. Kill him. Lai Yin Jufeng stared at Tang 13 sharply and said coldly, if there's something I can't control, I can only kill it. Give it a try. Nie Tian took a step forward, and a surge of sword aura soared into the sky, filled with battle intent. If Lai Yin Jufeng really wanted to fight, then he, Nie Tian, would accompany him to the end. Elder, don't you have anything to say? Lai Yin Jufeng was caught off guard for a moment. He didn't think that Nie Tian would have such a big reaction. He suddenly laughed and looked at Gao Yuhan. Aunt, that guy is a little troublesome. It would be best if Lai Yin Jufeng could help him stay awake, Duan Tianhen whispered before Gao Yuhan could say anything. Gao Yuhan's eyes flickered. After thinking for a long time, she finally looked at Nie Tian and said solemnly, Nie Tian, you have to give in. The deep voice wasn't loud, but it carried a domineering aura that couldn't be defied. Nie Tian stilled. He didn't think that Gao Yuhan would support Lai Yin Jufeng at a time like this. In reality, Gao Yuhan's reaction wasn't strange. After all, Tang 13 was the biggest threat to Duan Tianhen after she lost control. Even if Gao Yuhan kept an eye on Tang 13, Duan Tianhen would still be in danger. The most troublesome thing was that the closer they got to the Jiuying demonic cocoon, the stronger Tang 13's ghost eye became. Gao Yuhan wasn't even sure if the ghost eye could break through its limits if it absorbed enough evil energy of the Jiuying demonic cocoon. There were many things she had to consider, so it would be best if there was someone who could control Tang 13. Even if Tang 13 was in danger because of this, Gao Yuhan didn't care. In her eyes, Duan Tianhen was much more important than Tang 13. Nie Tianling looked coldly at Gao Yuhan and said solemnly, Elder, what if I don't give in? Then you'll force me to act. Gao Yuhan said coldly, her eyes murderous. She didn't want to turn against Nie Tian, but if he insisted, she had no choice but to act. The atmosphere at the scene became tense once more. Everyone felt a suffocating pressure, and a fight could break out at any moment. Nie Tian, everything is up to you. Make your choice. Lai Yin Jufeng smiled faintly, his expression playful. Nie Tian's expression was very tense, and his brain worked quickly. Lai Yin Jufeng was too cunning. He was good at reading other people's minds and using all kinds of connections. We'll take a step back. Just as Nie Tian was pondering, a voice rang out. It was Tang 13. Tang 13. Nie Tian stilled and looked at Tang 13. Tang 13 didn't know how dangerous Lai Yin Jufeng was. It seems there are smart people here. Lai Yin Jufeng looked at Tang 13 and smiled. He looked very proud. Tang 13 ignored him and looked at Nie Tian. She said, Nie Tian, this is my own choice. It's best for everyone. Nie Tian frowned. He saw helplessness in Tang 13's eyes. Tang 13 was the one who made this choice, but she had no other choice. Nie Tian took a step forward and was about to say something when Lai Yin Jufeng stopped him. The latter laughed strangely and said, Nie Tian, don't you have a sealing master with you? If you are worried, you can have that little cat keep an eye on me. Nie Tian frowned and his eyes flickered. Nie Tian, give in. Fat Cat's voice rose. I want to see what is so strange about the Heaven Punishing Clan's seal. Little Fatty, are you confident? Nie Tian asked in a low voice, his eyes trembling slightly. He was very confident in Fat Cat's sealing arts, but Tang 13's life was at stake. He had to be careful. I don't have absolute confidence, but I'm more than 50% confident. Little Fat Cat's blue eyes flashed as it said solemnly. Fat Cat was very confident in his sealing arts. But Lai Yin Jufeng was approaching the avatar of the Emperor of the Underworld. The Emperor of the Underworld was the ruler of the Heaven Punishing Clan. Fat Cat didn't know what kind of seal the ancient Ming had. Nie Tian's eyes flashed. He was still hesitating. Nie Tian, trust me. At that moment, Tang 13 took a step forward and looked at Nie Tian with determination in her eyes. Okay. Nie Tian felt Tang 13's determination. He stopped hesitating and nodded. Lai Yin Jiufeng saw Nie Tian nod. He smiled faintly and said, "A smart person would have made this decision a long time ago." Nie Tian abruptly turned around and stared coldly at Lai Yin Jiufeng. He said coldly, "Lai Yin Jiufeng, don't play tricks. I am an honest man. Why would I play tricks?" Lai Yin Jiufeng smiled mockingly. His posture was extremely provocative. People would want to beat him up. Lai Yin Jiufeng, if anything happens to Tang 13, I will kill you. Nie Tian's eyes were dark and murderous. Do whatever you want. Lai Yin Jiufeng didn't care. He smiled cold and taunted. Perhaps Lai Yin Jiufeng wasn't the strongest of all the opponents Nie Tian had faced, but he was definitely the most cunning and vicious. Chapter 1753. Gao Yuhan coldly glanced at Raging Flames Ju Feng and said indifferently, "Don't talk nonsense. Start doing your thing." She couldn't stand Blazing Nine Blades' arrogance. Blazing Nine Blades wasn't angry. He smiled faintly and walked towards Tang 13. At this moment, the little fat cat's figure appeared, carefully watching every move of the Blazing Nine Blades. Nie Tian stood to the side. If there were any abnormalities, he would immediately take action. Don't be nervous. It's just a very ordinary seal. It will allow you to maintain absolute consciousness. Blazing Nine Blades looked at Tang 13 and smiled faintly. Then, a mysterious black rune vortex appeared in his palm. Its aura wasn't strong, but it gave people a very evil feeling. "Little cat, do you want to check it?" Blazing Nine Blades raised his palm and looked at Fat Cat provocatively. "Of course I want to check it." Fat Cat laughed. Then, it waved its fat paw. The black rune vortex floated in the air and spun quickly. Fat Cat released a glass chi and carefully sensed the rune aura in the vortex. Everyone looked on from the side with curious looks on their faces. They did not know what little Fat Cat would be able to sense from such a direct perception. "Are you done?" After a while, Blazing Nine Blades seemed to be impatient and urged. "What's the rush? I just started." Fat Cat smiled and ignored Blazing Nine Blades. He knew that this matter concerned Tang 13's life. He didn't want to ruin his reputation as a sealing master. Fat Cat sensed little by little. The process was very slow, but it wasn't in a hurry at all. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed, and the little Fat Cat finally let out a long breath of turbid air. Looking at Blazing Nine Edges, he chuckled and said, "Kid, you can inject the sealing rune into the ghost eye now." Blazing Nine Blades' mouth twitched. His face was full of disdain. He raised his palm and suddenly moved. The sealing rune moved and came to Tang 13's side. It slowly entered the ghost eye. Tang 13 did not resist and allowed the sealing runes to flow in. The corner of Blazing Jiu Feng's mouth curled into a strange smile as he controlled the sealing rune. He thought to himself, after all, that little kitten isn't the nine-tailed chinchilla's true form. He can't sense how terrifying the Three Lives demonic seal is. The seal that Blazing Nine Edge had left on the ghost eye was the strongest seal of the ancient underworld, the Three Lives demonic seal. He was certain that the Fat Cat would not be able to sense the power of the Three Lives demon seal, so he dared to let the Fat Cat sense it. The Fat Cat returned to the Yuan embryo space with a puzzled expression. "Fat, are you all right?" Nie Tian saw Fat Cat's reaction and couldn't help but worry. "This seal is a little strange. It does have the effect of keeping people awake. Other than that, I can't sense much information," the Fat Cat said with a frown. The confusion on its face grew. He knew Blazing Nine Blades very well. There was no way he would be so honest. Blazing Nine Blades had spent so much effort to leave this seal on the ghost eye. It couldn't be just to keep Tang 13 awake. Nie Tian's heart couldn't help but sink. He asked, Is this seal a threat to Tang 13? I don't know. The fat cat shook its head. In the next moment, a smile appeared on its face. It said, "But it doesn't matter. I left a glazed rune on the seal." Nie Tian was stunned. He thought that the fat cat was only sensing the rune. He didn't expect that the fat cat had done something to it. Even Blazing Nine Blades probably didn't think of this. No wonder the fat cat took so long to sense the rune. It turned out that it had also done something. I hid the glazed rune under the black rune. Blazing Nine Blades won't be able to sense it. The fat cat smiled proudly and said, "I want to see what the ancient underworld seal is all about." After a while, Tang 13 absorbed all the runes of the Three Lives demonic seal. The whole process was very easy. Is it done? Tang 13's eyes flickered. He couldn't sense anything unusual. It's done. Blazing Nine Blades smiled faintly. A strange smile appeared on his face. At this moment, an image appeared in his mind. He could vaguely see a black whirlpool. It was the Jiu Ing demonic cocoon. This was the image that Tang 13 had sensed. Now, it appeared in Blazing Nine Blades' mind. The Three Lives demonic seal allowed Blazing Nine Blades to sense everything that Tang 13 sensed. However, the power of the Three Lives demonic seal wasn't limited to this. The power of the seal could even help Blazing Nine Blades absorb the evil energy of the Jiu Ing demonic cocoon in Tang 13's ghost eye. In order to not let Tang 13 sense it, Blazing Nine Blades didn't absorb the evil energy of the Jiu Ing demonic cocoon. Now wasn't the time. He was waiting for Tang 13 to absorb more evil energy. At the same time, the fat cat's strange cry sounded in Nie Tian's mind. "Fat, what's wrong?" Nie Tian was stunned and asked in surprise. "Nie Tian, look." The fat cat waved its paw and a glassy aura gushed out. Then, it condensed into a vague image. It was the image that Tang 13 sensed. "That's the Jiu Ing demonic cocoon," Nie Tian exclaimed in his heart when he saw the black whirlpool in the image. "Yes." The fat cat nodded solemnly. Its face was full of uncertainty. "Fat, how can you sense the Jiu Ing demonic cocoon?" In the next moment, Nie Tian suddenly reacted. Then, his expression changed and his whole body froze. Among those present, only Tang 13 could sense the existence of the Jiu Ing demonic cocoon. Therefore, the image that fat cat condensed could only come from Tang 13. Nie Tian thought for a moment and immediately understood the whole process. The fat cat's image came from Blazing Nine Blades, and Blazing Nine Blades' image came from Tang 13. The fat cat had done something to the Three Lives demonic seal. He could sense everything that the Three Lives demonic seal sensed. Blazing Nine Blades, you really are dishonest. After understanding everything, Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He couldn't help but glance at Blazing Nine Blades. The latter had a smile on his face and didn't notice that Nie Tian was looking at him. "Nie Tian, let's calm down first." The fat cat was worried that Nie Tian would act rashly and said, "I will watch Blazing Nine Blades. If he does anything strange, I will tell you immediately." "Okay." Nie Tian nodded heavily and retracted his gaze from Blazing Nine Blades. Blazing Nine Blades only obtained everything that Tang 13 sensed through the seal. He didn't cause any actual harm to Tang 13, so Nie Tian could still accept it. However, this also meant that the Three Lives demonic seal was very unusual. He didn't know what effect it would have on Tang 13 next. At this moment, Tang 13 suddenly exclaimed. Her expression changed as if she sensed something. At almost the same time, Blazing Nine Blades and Nie Tian's expressions changed as well. This was because they saw the image that Tang 13 sensed. Tens of thousands of meters away, three figures were running wildly towards Nie Tian and the others. "Everyone, be careful!" Tang 13 exclaimed. Her voice was filled with extreme panic. Boom! 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 Almost as soon as she finished speaking, three figures descended from the sky. They were like three gigantic pillars that descended from the heavens. Everyone was stunned. Looking at the three figures in front of them, they couldn't help but tremble. The faces of these three figures were very strange. Their faces were surging with terrifying black runes that looked like maggots crawling around. One could barely make out that they were humanoid. It was both strange and disgusting. "It's the guards of the nine-headed snakelet Forbidden Land." At this moment, Gao Yuhan suddenly exclaimed. Chapter 1754. Gao Yuhan's eyes flickered when she recognized the person in front of her. The guards of the Forbidden Ground of 9 Infants were all paramount god martial artists. The scariest thing was that they could ignore the suppression of the martial path restriction. They really are the guards of the Forbidden Ground. Nie Tian frowned and reacted immediately. His eyes trembled. Although he had never fought with these guards before, he knew that their strength was unimaginably tyrannical. Didn't these guards leave? Why are they back? Duan Tianhen's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he growled. They didn't leave. Just like Tang 13, they were controlled by the demon cocoon of 9 Infants. Gao Yuhan's eyes swept across the three guards. The others were stunned. The guards of the Forbidden Ground of 9 Infants had been controlled by the demon cocoon of 9 Infants. Kill! Just as Gao Yuhan finished her sentence, the three guards suddenly roared and attacked at the same time. Immediately, 3 palms of energy blasted out, sweeping everything in their path with the force of a stormy sea, pressing towards the crowd. It was easy to imagine the strength of the joint attack of 3 paramount god martial artists. Everyone felt the space suddenly tighten, and then a terrifying pressure suddenly descended from the space, making them feel like they were suffocating. Green eye protection. At the critical moment, Gao Yuhan shouted in a low voice. Her eyes trembled, and an endless amount of ocular power gushed out continuously, condensing into a green barrier that enveloped everyone. In an instant, everyone felt the pressure on their bodies lessen. Bang! 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 The next moment, the 3 terrifying palm energies landed on the green barrier at the same time. The green barrier, which didn't seem very powerful, easily withstood the combined attack of the 3 palms. What a terrifying 9 colored pupils! Seeing this, Nie Tian's eyes couldn't help but tremble. The power of the 9 color pupils was terrifying. It could easily block the combined attack of 3 paramount god martial artists. Gao Yuhan was under the suppression of the martial path restriction. She couldn't use the power of her Yuan Meridian and Godhead. She was completely relying on the 9 color pupils to fight. Her 9 color pupils had only opened 8 eyes. No one knew how terrifying the 9 color pupils would be when all 9 eyes were opened. Heaven-burning scarlet eye. At the moment when the 3 palms were about to land, Gao Yuhan let out a low roar again. Immediately after, a red light flashed and flew over like a flame. Boom! Wherever the flames landed, a guard was instantly swallowed up. Not even his bones were left. Everyone was completely stunned by the scene in front of them, and their eyes trembled incessantly. No one could have imagined that Gao Yuhan's rainbow pupils would be so terrifying that they could instantly kill a paramount god martial artist. Nie Tian sucked in a breath of cold air. It seemed like he had underestimated the power of the rainbow pupils. However, using the green eye and scarlet eye consecutively took a huge toll on Gao Yuhan. The corner of her eyes were already bleeding. She had already used up a lot of her eye bloodline power to save Duan Tianhen. She hadn't fully recovered yet, so she couldn't bear to use the 9 color eyes again. Out of the 3 guards, 1 was killed by Gao Yuhan. The other 2 became even crazier. The black symbols that covered their faces spread to their entire bodies, making them look like 2 abysses of darkness. These guards were completely controlled by the 9-headed snakelet demon cocoon. The 9-headed snakelet's evil energy swallowed their minds and made them lose their consciousness. In their hearts, there was only the most basic desire to kill. Boom! Boom! The 2 guards attacked again. The 9-headed snakelet's evil energy around them increased in intensity. Their chi surged and they attacked the green barrier. Ugh! The green barrier once again blocked their attacks. However, Gao Yuhan's body shook and she spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood at the corner of her eyes became even more obvious. She can't hold on any longer. Let's go. Seeing this, Nie Tian let out a low roar and directly activated his 3 forbidden technique. His aura skyrocketed as he took a step forward and madly slashed with his sword. At the same time, Tang 13 opened her ghost eye. A beam of black light enveloped Nie Tian, allowing him to ignore the restrictions. On the other side, Lai Yin Jiufeng attacked as well. He transformed into a ball of fire and shot toward one of the guards. Bang! Bang! 2 muffled sounds rang out at almost the same time. The 2 guards were sent flying, but they quickly stabilized themselves in the air. Both Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng were early overgods, but they were up against 2 early paramount gods. The difference in strength between the 2 of them was far too obvious. Boom! Boom! The 2 guards reacted and immediately attacked Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng. A huge black palm descended from the sky. It was as if a collapsing mountain was crashing down on the 2 of them. Watch out! The others cried out. Their hearts were in their throat. Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng glanced at each other, then took action at the same time. They pushed off the ground and shot into the sky. Nie Tian stabbed out with his sword, combining his blood energy and sword intent. A terrifying sword blur shot out like a dragon breaking out of the abyss. Lai Yin Jiufeng's figure was like fire. The power of golden flames around him spread out, creating a sea of fire that seemed to be burning the sky. Rumble! Rumble! 2 intense sounds of collision rang out in the sky, causing the space to tremble. Following that, an ear-piercing sound rang out, extremely ear-piercing. Shockwaves surged in the air, crashing in all directions. Heaven and earth trembled incessantly. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. They were deeply shocked by Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng's strength. Although they were only early overgods, their battle prowess rivaled that of early paramount gods. It had to be said that after the guards of the 9 neonate forbidden ground were controlled by the 9 neonate demon cocoon, their consciousness was devoured and they became mindless killing machines. Therefore, their strength was reduced under the influence of the evil energy of the 9 neonate. Although the 2 guards were early paramount gods, their battle prowess was about the same as peak overgods. They only possessed the martial bodies of paramount gods. Even so, Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng were still very terrifying to be able to face the 2 of them head-on. At this moment, Nie Tian also discovered that his opponent's strength wasn't as terrifying as he had expected. He couldn't help but smirk. His silhouette flickered as he activated the 3 evil sword vein, causing the sword intent around him to become incomparably violent. Following which, he slashed out with his sword, causing terrifying sword shadows to shoot towards the 2 guards. "I'll help you," Lai Yin Jiufeng growled when he saw this. He slapped out with his palm, and a line of fire appeared, instantly turning the plains into a sea of fire. It surged into the sword blur, and fused perfectly with the sword intent. The flaming sword blur that burned with the power of golden flames slashed through the air. The surroundings seemed to have been turned into a furnace. Chapter 1755. This. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw the scene in the sky. Their expressions were shaking. Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng's combined attack had actually killed 2 paramount god-level guards. This was too terrifying. Nie Tian looked up at the sky and let out a long breath. After all, those 2 guards were puppets controlled by the demon cocoon. Although they were strong, they couldn't use their full strength. If his and Lai Yin Jiufeng's opponents were paramount gods under normal circumstances, it would be hard to predict the outcome. Although the difference between an early paramount god and a peak overgod was only 1 level, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. Lai Yin Jiufeng smiled faintly and let out a sigh of relief. It had to be said that Nie Tian and Lai Yin Jiufeng's combined attack was unexpectedly strong. "Are you all right?" Gao Yuhan saw that the two guards were dead, so she immediately removed the blue barrier and stepped forward. Nie Tian shook his head with a smile, indicating that he was fine. Gao Yuhan, on the other hand, was in a bad state. Her face was a little pale, and the blood at the corner of her eyes hadn't dried yet. Her rainbow pupils were already under the pressure of the devourer of blood. Recently, she had been using it repeatedly, so the burden was too great. The devourer of blood was growing stronger and stronger. These guards didn't leave the forbidden ground of 9 infants. Doesn't that mean they're all under the demon cocoon's control? Duan Tianhen suddenly thought of something and exclaimed. Yes, that should be the case. Gao Yuhan nodded. She couldn't help but look worried. Judging from the current situation, the guards of the forbidden ground of 9 infants were indeed under the demon cocoon's control. Lord Elder, do you know how many guards there are in the forbidden ground of 9 infants? Nie Tian's eyes flashed and he stepped forward. The last time they appeared outside the forbidden ground, there were more than a dozen guards. He didn't know if this was all the guards. I don't know. Gao Yuhan shook her head and said, but according to my guess, there should be no less than 50. 50? Nie Tian couldn't help but gasp when he heard that number. Dealing with 3 guards was already pushing them to their limit. If there were more than 50 paramount god guards in the forbidden area, they would be in serious trouble. And if there really were 50 guards, why did only 3 of them appear? Where are the others? Duan Tianhen asked with a puzzled expression. I don't know either. Gao Yuhan shook her head again and said solemnly, perhaps the 9-headed snakelet demonic cocoon used the remaining guards to do other things. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He could not help but feel lucky that only 3 guards had appeared. If a dozen or even dozens of guards had appeared at once, they would really be in danger. The 9-headed snake-headed demonic cocoon had only sent out 3 guards but left the rest behind. What would they do? The 9-headed snakelet demonic cocoon clearly knew the whereabouts of Nie Tian and the others. What could be more important than preventing Nie Tian and the others from getting close to him? No matter how he thought about it, there was only one answer in Nie Tian's mind, and that was the awakening of the 9-headed snakelet demon cocoon. The other guards must be helping the 9-headed snakelet demon cocoon speed up its awakening. The 9-headed snakelet demon cocoon could easily control dozens of paramount gods before it awakened. Who knew how terrifying it would be after it awakened? We have to find the 9-headed snakelet demon cocoon as soon as possible and stop it from awakening. Nie Tian immediately turned to Tang 13 and said. Tang 13 nodded. He could feel that the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet demon cocoon was getting stronger and stronger. The 9-headed snakelet demon cocoon was about to awaken. Without further ado, they followed behind Tang 13 and headed deeper into the forbidden area of the 9-headed snakelet. As they went deeper, Nie Tian could feel the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet demon cocoon getting stronger and stronger. He could already feel it clearly. His perception of the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet demon cocoon couldn't compare to Tang 13's. The evil energy that Tang 13 could feel was definitely stronger. Tang 13 frowned slightly and his expression was ugly. His eyes were under unimaginable pressure. Tang 13, are you all right? Nie Tian looked at Tang 13 and couldn't help but ask worriedly. I'm fine. Tang 13 nodded, but his expression was ugly. Don't worry. With my mark of 3 lives, he won't be controlled by the evil energy of the 9-headed snakelet. Lai Yin Jiufeng glanced at Tang 13. He was very confident in his mark of 3 lives. The mark of 3 lives indeed had the effect of keeping Tang 13 awake. If not for the mark of 3 lives, Tang 13 might have already lost control. Nie Tian nodded silently. He followed beside Tang 13 and kept his guard up at all times. Under Tang 13's lead, the group entered a gloomy canyon. The moment they entered the canyon, everyone's expression changed. This was because the evil energy of the nine-headed snakelet demon cocoon in the canyon was obviously much stronger than outside. The air was filled with terrifying dark energy. It was like countless tentacles that wanted to invade everyone's body. Everyone was shocked. They took each step carefully and didn't dare to be careless. Ah! At this moment, Tang 13 suddenly let out a strange cry. He covered his head with both hands and a terrifying evil energy surged out of his eyes. In an instant, his entire body was covered. Tang 13. Seeing this, Tang Yuyu couldn't help but scream. He was extremely nervous. "Don't go near him!" Nie Tian growled and pulled Tang Yuyu back. Although Lai Yen Jiufeng had left the mark of 3 lives in Tang 13's eyes, Nie Tian was still worried that Tang 13 might lose control. "Ah!" Tang 13 screamed. His face was contorted. It was obvious that he was in great pain. Everyone stared at him. They didn't know what was happening. At this time, Lai Yen Jiufeng's eyes were trembling. His expression was slightly strange. "Little fatty, what's going on? What did Tang 13 sense?" Nie Tian was surprised and asked in a low voice. The fat cat moved its paws. The glazed energy formed an image. Nie Tian stared at the image created by the fat cat. His eyes couldn't help but become dull. The image seemed to show a deep abyss world. A black whirlpool floated there, and below it were dozens of huge stone pillars. The stone pillars were engraved with strange runes, and clouds of black gas curled around the stone pillars, exuding a cold and mournful aura. Taking a closer look, each of the dozens of stone pillars had a person tied to it. The black runes in the air were absorbing the blood energy of the people tied to the stone pillars. They were madly pouring it into the black whirlpool in the air. Seeing this, Nie Tian couldn't help but inwardly gasp. His eyes trembled. He said in shock, "The demon cocoon of 9 infants is awakening." What the fat cat showed Nie Tian was the image that Tang 13 felt. This was the image of the demon cocoon of 9 infants awakening, and the people tied to the stone pillars were the guards of the forbidden ground of 9 infants. At this time, Tang 13 screamed again. Her voice was extremely shrill. Nie Tian suddenly turned around and looked at Tang 13. The latter's eyes were open. Blood was pouring out of them. Her entire body was covered in darkness and a bloody aura. It looked very evil. "A bunch of ants. You think you can stop me from awakening?" The corner of Tang 13's mouth trembled. She suddenly spoke. Her voice was low and cold. It was like a roar from hell. Chapter 1756. This voice. Hearing Tang 13's voice, everyone was stunned. They could tell that this was not his original voice. It was a completely different voice. "A bunch of ants. How dare you barge into the Devil Valley of the 9 infants? You deserve to die." At this moment, Tang 13 lifted his head abruptly. His eyes were as deep as the abyss as he stared at the crowd. Everyone who met his gaze felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Tang 13's eyes were too terrifying. They were like the darkness itself, emitting a boundless and cold aura. Everyone froze in place, stunned by Tang 13's imposing manner. "Godfiend nascent embryo, I will kill you first." In the next moment, Tang 13's gaze locked onto Nie Tian. With a roar, he reached out his hand. The dark aura in the air formed into a sharp claw that clawed at Nie Tian. The claw wasn't huge, but the aura it exuded was extremely strong. It gave off a feeling that it was impossible to defend against. It made people feel hopeless. Nie Tian's eyes flickered as he came to a realization. He tried to circulate his Yuan meridians, but to his astonishment, he discovered that his Yuan meridians and Godhead were being suppressed by a strange force. He couldn't release even the slightest bit of power. "Little bastard, this is too strong. Even if you have the Godfiend nascent embryo, you won't be able to defend against it." Tang 13 shouted coldly. The sharp claw slashed down. Nie Tian's eyes widened. Astral energy gushed out of his body and formed a shield around him. At the same time, Rui Qinyu moved. Her eyes turned a strange green color. Terrifying eye energy gushed out and enveloped Nie Tian, forming a green shield around him. Bang! Bang! In the next moment, the sharp claw landed. The shield and the green shield shattered. Nie Tian's body flew backwards and landed heavily on a huge rock behind him. Nie Tian. Rui Qinyu saw this scene and couldn't help but scream. Her face was pale. I'm fine. Nie Tian roared and jumped out of the rock. His body was covered in blood, but his breathing was still stable. Tang 13 gasped in shock. Then, she laughed strangely. The embryo of the demon and God sure is not bad. You took a hit from me and you are still alive. Who are you? Nie Tian steadied himself and stared at Tang 13. Thanks to Rui Qinyu's help, Nie Tian would have been seriously injured. He wasn't particularly strong, only about as strong as an early paramount god. However, he radiated a terrifying energy that would make anyone who looked at him feel despair. Little bastard, your talent is not bad, but it's a pity that you're too young and too weak. Tang 13 did not answer Nie Tian's question. Instead, she laughed maniacally and said, Since all of you have entered the 9 infants' Devil's Valley, all of you must die. The piercing sound was like countless steel needles filling the air, causing everyone's eardrums to rupture. Everyone could feel the sound piercing through their souls. They couldn't help but scream. It's a sound wave psychic attack. In Nie Tian's divine sense, Fat Cat shrieked, unable to hide her fear. Tang 13's psychic attack was terrifying. Even Gao Yuhan was affected. She looked like she was in pain. Nie Tian activated his holographic divine glyph to expel the sound from his mind. Then, he moved and thrust his sword at Tang 13. Tang 13 was surprised again. She was forced to take a few steps back and easily dodged Nie Tian's attack. Then she laughed and said, Interesting. I can't believe it's a spiritual type spirit force that can resist my 9 fierce beasts' demonic voice. Who the hell are you? Nie Tian roared angrily when he saw that the others were all suffering. Tang 13's demonic voice of the 9 infants kept devouring everyone's divine sense, driving them crazy. Nie Tian glanced at Lai Yanjiufeng. Even he was affected by the demonic voice of the 9 infants and screamed in pain. Fortunately, Nie Tian had the holographic divine glyph. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to resist the demonic voice of the 9 infants. Nie Tian, think of a way to wake Lai Yanjiufeng up. He's the only one who can expel the 9-headed soul demon cocoon from Tang 13's body. Little Fat Cat shouted anxiously and reminded Nie Tian. In a situation like this, only Lai Yanjiufeng could use the seal of 3 lives to expel the cocoon. Yes. Nie Tian nodded heavily. Then, his eyes trembled. A psychic attack surged out and engulfed Lai Yanjiufeng. Ah! Lai Yanjiufeng's divine sense was attacked. He screamed and his eyes became clear. Lai Yanjiufeng, do it! Nie Tian didn't have time to say anything else and roared angrily. Lai Yanjiufeng's eyes flashed and he reacted. He immediately formed a strange seal with his hands. A ring of light appeared and coiled around his fingers like a small snake. It's the vein of 3 lives. Not bad, but it's too weak to deal with me. Tang 13's eyes narrowed slightly. He saw through Lai Yanjiufeng's yuan veins and sneered arrogantly. Ah! But in the next moment, before he could finish speaking, he suddenly let out a blood-curdling screech. His face became hideous, and his entire body twisted. Can you endure the seal of 3 lives? Lai Yanjiufeng's eyes were murderous. The ring of light in his palm surged madly and released a violent aura. As the ring of light sped up, Tang 13 screamed again. The evil energy of the 9 infants surged madly and became extremely violent. It seemed like it wanted to devour half of him. Tang 13. Nie Tian saw Tang 13 in unbearable pain and cried out. Lien Jiufeng used the seal of 3 lives to expel the evil energy of the 9 infants. This caused Tang 13 great pain. "Brat, you will kill him!" Tang 13 screamed into the sky. Blood gushed out of her eyes, and her entire face turned frightening. In Tang 13's eyes, the seal of 3 lives and the evil energy of the 9 infants clashed against each other. The endless impact was unbearable, but Lien Jiufeng did not care. The ring of light in his palm grew even more violent. Of course he did not care about Tang 13's life. "Ah!" Tang 13 screamed hysterically. Blood flowed from his eyes, and bloody wounds appeared on his face and body. His body looked like it was about to explode. The impact was too strong. It went through his eyes and spread throughout his body. "Stop!" Seeing Tang 13 in danger, Nie Tian shouted and tried to stop Lien Jiufeng. This is his last chance. If he is devoured by the 9 infants' demon cocoon, his consciousness will disappear forever. Lien Jiufeng suddenly looked at Nie Tian and said darkly. Nie Tian was stunned. His eyes flashed. Lien Jiufeng was not lying. If Tang 13 could not survive this, his consciousness would disappear completely. Nie Tian, I am fine." At that moment, Tang 13's body suddenly went stiff, and she opened her mouth to call out Nie Tian's name. Tang 13. Nie Tian's pupils constricted as Tang 13's soul awareness actually recovered for a brief moment. "Trust me." Tang 13's eyes trembled and she said in a low voice,